As opposed to me.
Yeah, you have to get here early. Good evening, everyone. This is Tuesday, March 4th at 7 o'clock, and this is the advisory committee meeting, and we have a quorum. And we're going to start off our budget discussions this evening with Bill Cleary from the Neshoba Regional School District Facilities Manager. Come on up, Bill. Good to see you. I'm going to ask you have to move your own furniture here.
No
Probably
problem.
something you're used to,
Yes,
right?
I can do that.
Very good. Very good. So I know this is your second, you know everybody Stasha? Do you know Stasha?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Julie Costello, our town accountant.
Julie,
Bob,
see you again.
you know everybody else?
Yes.
Connie, Brad. So, welcome. We can start out first, maybe just, why don't you give an overview of what you're doing, what the Neshoba Regional School District facilities work is looking like this year?
Sure.
Is that something that works? Is that what you?
Yeah, and actually I have a copy here. This is our capital projects
Okay, good.
it's a 5-year lookout for the capital projects.
Now, is this just for our two schools here?
Correct.
Not the high school?
That's right.
Okay.
This is just here for the Montessori and the Emerson School. Yes, I do. Thank you. Yes, sir. So what I can start with is kind of go over a brief what we did last year and talk a little bit of what we're going to do this year for capital projects. So last year we looked at, for Sawyer School, we had the completion of the well work, which was a project that was on the books for a little while and ran into its challenges with trying to figure out the directional drilling as to, instead of the trench drilling. We were able to work that out. We had another appropriation last year that was able to, fill the gap on that project, and that's completed. We have DEP approval. We did all our interconnection paperwork, so that job is done. We started flooring replacement last year in the Sawyer building of some carpets. We originally went out to bid to do 8 classrooms, and when we went out to a competitive bid, it ended up coming in, what we first estimated was about 24 or so thousand, came in at about 13,000. So it came in under. So this is going to give us the ability to go out for a second round of bidding within last year's work, which will be in April. In April to into the summer, in order to do another round of maybe 5 or 6 classrooms inside that same scope.
Just back up a little bit on this,
Sure.
because these were going to be some questions I'm sure we were going to ask you. So originally you got approved in the article for $26,017 for Florence Sawyer, which is the number that's appearing here on in the gray column. And you spent, I think, to date around $16,500.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
That's what I have.
And so the balance of, what is that?
About
9
say
or
about
10,000
yep.
is appearing, I see 15,000 in the fiscal year 2015.
Right, and that would be almost like a third phase. Now, the original was to do it in 2 phases, do some work this year, some work next year. It worked out well with the bid process that we were able to get someone with a competitive product. It was a good product. We qualified it, they came in, they did the work, we were able to get a couple extra classrooms out of this, so.
But then if you have 10 left and you're satisfied with the scope of work, then why wouldn't you just take that 10 and do what you do? You're asking for 15 more. Why couldn't we just move this 15 into 16?
The 15,000 into 2016.
Into 2016, just to get 10.
Next
I think he's
phase.
suggesting that we could.
I think that is
Okay.
I think that is an option. The carpets are worn. One of the hopes was to, if we kept the 15,000 in the 2015, was to also start working in Emerson and do some additional carpets.
Why wouldn't you just, once that was done, rebid for the remaining 10?
Why did you wait? Why wasn't it done during 2014? Is that the question?
Well, yeah, it's
School started. And it's a very disruptive process, so to go through, the bid process
No,
takes.
okay, that's fine. I understand that's perfectly acceptable.
So that's why I'm looking at either April vacation, probably more so once, because in order to do it, I'm emptying out in the early, 1st through 4th grade classrooms, which are very difficult on the teachers. If you empty them out, you disrupt their whole process, so I try not to.
So the work that was done, the 16,000 That was done mostly at Sawyer?
It was done all at Sawyer.
Okay, all at
Yeah,
Sawyer.
that was entirely at Sawyer.
And will
Okay.
the remaining 9 cover the rest of Sawyer?
It will cover, it's not gonna do a complete renovation of all the carpets, but it will cover the balance of what I think we need to finish at Sawyer that's damaged. You know,
Well, the next 15 that you're asking for, some of that for Sawyer?
we'd have a little bit more in Sawyer to go, maybe, what I'm trying to do is phase it into the carpets that were in real bad shape, you know, torn, stained, and then the ones that are getting,
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of is, is the scope of what remains at Sawyer too big to do this summer?
no,
And if we gave you 5,000 instead of 15 more, would you get that done?
absolutely. Well, yes, I would get Sawyer done. I
Would that
wouldn't do-
finish Sawyer?
Yes, I'd finish Sawyer, I wouldn't do anything at Emerson.
Okay, let me just leave that on the table for you.
So what you're
So that
thinking
can-
is that then pushing 10,000 into 16?
Yes.
Yeah, it would just appear to me that prudent,
Mhm.
You know,
what would tell you,
I think
we could
that's-
push some into 16.
I think that's a reasonable approach. It's,
Because all of a sudden, you've now come up, not to criticize, but you've come up with a phase 3, when before it was phase 1 and 2. 1 came in really good, you have some money left on the table to go towards 2, and then now, you know, we've lengthened it with 15 more that we might think about differently.
So 2 would cost you around 14, because if you give him 5, he's got like 9.
so it'd be about the 15,000.
No, we
yes.
So
have
no, we
9
have-
now,
we have
give them
nine,
5.
we have
almost 10
Covers
left,
the
yeah.
total 15.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought you were pushing it to 16.
No, you push 10 out of this.
And then we could look at 16 as a
Gotcha.
Emerson.
5
Yeah.
plus the 9 he has left.
So that's what I'm saying, so it's about 14 grand left to do
Correct.
at, okay, for phase 2, so they're all the,
And then that would give us
No, I beg to differ with that. So we have $9,500 left, and then another 5,000, so 9,505, so that would, yes, 14. Thank you, I'm sorry.
14.
Yeah.
14, and then the 10,000 would go out to 60.
16, and that could be used for the Emerson carpets, and I think that means distribution.
Now, would the 10 be enough for everything you need to do at Emerson?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So 9 plus 5, okay.
So the size of the project is the same, it's just the timing of it is spread out a little,
We just
which is fine.
spread it out some, which works great.
Yeah.
So I just need a little clarification. Last year, it was already a 2-year project, guys? Is that what you had
My
been committed to?
recollection was it was 3
I
years.
thought I remember seeing 3 as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was 15 a year for 3 years is what I thought the proposal was, but
okay.
I don't have my notes in
Came in a
front.
little bit, I came in a little bit less than you wanted, and
Okay.
that's, so ultimately,
I'll take
we're
that.
Sometimes the bid process works well.
Yeah,
sometimes it does. Okay, sorry to walk through this, but this is helpful.
No problem.
To slow it down a bit. Okay, AC.
So then AC, I've put on 2016 as a placeholder. I think the thought would be that, you know, we'd like to get some support and, you know, see what the community would like to do in this initiative. It is a large initiative. Right now, the Florence Sawyer School is the only school, middle school in the district without air conditioning. So, you know, I know last year we brought it up and it was voted down, so I'd just like to keep it there as a talking point. And, you know, I spoke with the principal of the school, Joel Bates, and said, you know, maybe he can talk to his community members and his council there to, you know, pick up the ball and run with it if they feel that it's a valid need.
Do all of the schools, you mean everything in Stowe and Lancaster have?
Hale Middle School has, we did this same type of air conditioning project at Hale Middle School 2 years ago, a retrofit in there. In Lancaster, when it was remodeled, when it was built, it had the air chiller system in it, so that has central air.
And Centerwood.
Center has it, yes. Emerson has air conditioning in the classroom wing, and as well as Mary Rollinson Elementary being one building. And the high school has air conditioning.
So Bill, this has been on for several years now. It's continually pushed. I believe that it's probably been, I think it's been voted down twice. But if I remember correctly, when it first started, the number was 300,000.
It was, it's,
And help me understand how in the course of 5 years, it would go up by 100 grand.
right now, I'm looking at a placeholder in this 400,000. I've had prices doing a new system, you know, I've had them come in at a rough number of $1 million. This here, is the same kind of in-house engineering we did at Hale. So taking a look at the supplies, the cost of these supplies of copper, of wire, of labor.
All right, I got you on the copper.
Wire labor has gone up, so, you know, what I don't want to do is come in with a number, and every year I try to reassess it, take a look at the market, what we have to do a little, you know, took what I learned at Hale, and what we had to do at Hale to do it, because we engineered that in-house and did a lot of the work in-house. So what we were able to learn there and apply to this one, I've made some adjustments. I don't find it's...
So is it possibly the 300 4 or 5 years ago was a low number?
I think it would have been a little low. I do.
It just seems a huge jump. I mean, I know, I understand inflation, I even understand the price of copper, but $100,000 in 4 or 5 years, it's a healthy increase.
It is, and I believe the 300 was probably a little underestimated for what we...
I think it was 330.
330.
Okay.
So, and I do believe that would have been a stretch to reach, and we actually, I think it was 330.
3 or 4 years ago, it was 330.
So from what we've looked at, I think the 400 is a more realistic figure for, and this project has 40 classrooms.
Is it possible to do a project like that in phases?
Yes, it would cost more. The final cost would be, you know, probably closer to 500,000. I don't know, just thinking it, I know there would be this scale of economy here once you're in the building and the workers are pulling wire and copper and pulling ceiling tiles down. But we could do a floor and a floor. That is a possibility.
Have you discussed the idea, I thought the playground structure worked well with the homeless of community fundraising, and then that went a long way, I'll speak for me, it went a long way with me being on this board. Has there ever been any discussion?
No, and honestly, that's why I'm kind of pushing it towards the principal and Joel to work with his school council and say, you know, what do we want to do here? Is there something that we could look at to build some support? And
Yeah, again, that's a 2016 issue. That's really not on the table for this year's budget.
But it's been an interesting question.
So I kept it in 2016 as a placeholder for a conversation piece, so it may slide depending on what the community decides to do here.
Door hardware replacement.
Door hardware, so this became based on the, some requests between, I think it was between advisory and finance last year, that we did a replacement of all the exterior doors of Florence Sawyer School when we did the walkthrough of the building. So this summer, we came in and that was at $60,000.
Yeah.
We replaced all the exterior doors in the building with new doors. We also, at the same time, replaced the interior door hardware of those doors, a majority of it, in order to, you know, better secure the building, and at the same time, we changed the locks on the building.
Out
So
of the
it's
same 60,000?
out of that $60,000.
Yeah,
And
you
look,
Okay.
I should have
Yeah,
said
you
that.
skipped it. You were back on,
Yeah.
the one before that, door hardware
I'm
replacement.
actually bouncing between the two,
Okay,
because they,
60,000, you spent 50,700,
I actually have,
unless you've got something else in there.
I think we're closer to about 66,000 on that. And I may have something I still have to send over to you because I was inspecting some of the doors and making sure the work was done properly before I send them over. So, but I believe where we're at right now with completing that project, as well as some of the interior door hardware for the interior door hardware, I'm sorry, the exterior doors, the interior hardware for them came to about 66,000.
So do you view that as a combination, originally in the article it was written as 60,000 for installation of new exterior doors and hardware at Florence Sawyer, and now they're
Correct.
stripping at Emerson.
And then
And then 22.5 for interior door hardware replacement at Florence Sawyer. Now, so 66,000 is more than
the 60,
60.
but part of that became because we had to replace some of the interior.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah, I'm
in
troubled with that.
22.5, my recollection was, this was very close to the Newtown incident last year. We looked at our interior hardware, which were failing, and they could only be locked from the hallway, some serious safety concerns. And so the 22.5, my recollection was to address interior hardware, not interior of the exterior doors. The 60 was, even though it was exterior, it was the whole door knob in the front, knob in the back, didn't matter, exterior, interior. What I'm hearing now is 6,000, we went
From
over
the
by 6
22.5.
and pretended that it was, because it was the interior knobs of the exterior doors. That's not what I recall the 22.5 to be for.
Because right now, we're showing that none of the 22.5 has been spent.
Yeah, and the way you
Right.
have it defined here, it does say
Well, you know, I
explicitly
may-
what it is.
I'll take another look at that, because I think you're showing 56, is that what you showed there?
No, wait.
50,600.
50,600?
I don't know whether or not I
Yeah.
allocated them to the right projects because it doesn't say
I'll
that.
take a look at it.
Yeah, so that would be, yeah, so,
Because
but
mine's
even,
one account, like I told you,
Yeah,
and
you
that's
said,
all that
yeah.
gets built in there.
yeah,
Pull it out.
it's hard to
It's
do,
easier
yeah.
to-
It is.
Exterior doors, and to do them completely cost 66,000.
It was a little, about 64 and change is where it finally came to.
Okay, can you work with Julie to get that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll work that out with Julie.
And I guess then the question becomes, what happened to the 22.5 for the interior doors?
Right now, that's still sitting.
Well,
I haven't done the interior doors yet because we focused on the exterior doors. I'm working now on the project over the spring to come in and we walk through the building. We did an initial quote to do even all the closet doors and it came over budget. So now we're looking at just specifically the classroom doors and I'll have that completed this summer.
And wasn't that to be a safety issue for the kids?
Yes, yes, that's,
Somewhat troubling that it hasn't been done.
well, it's just
Time.
time and resources trying to get the projects completed.
So was it,
Resources, no, because you have resources right there, 22.5.
I'm sorry, in-house resources, writing the bids, you know, I write all the bids and do all the projects, so, you know, the focus became the exterior doors just to secure the building.
But you gotta understand, Bill, we went to town meeting, we requested hard-earned taxpayer money to address the safety need. We appropriated money on May, whatever, last year. You essentially had the money in your pocket on May 6th. And here we are on March 4th, and nothing's been done. So we're gonna essentially go a whole year with what we sold as an eminent safety enhancement. And that's what's, I think to Terry's point, that's what's tough to swallow
Okay.
for me personally.
And it makes it difficult to go ahead with other projects if, and, you know, because if you don't have the resources and the manpower and whatever to get done last year's projects.
Well, it's also a timing, you know, I wanted to make sure that we had the work done right, and we really did focus on, the exterior doors were a little bit of a surprise. We did get that was a great project, but it was quite a bit of work too.
now is that
Just during
something
the
that
summer.
got done during the school year, or
No,
was
that was during the summer, and it was a short summer last year, so we
Okay.
ran right to the beginning of the
So,
year,
so
and we had the
it's
well
not
project.
just, it's not just the bid process, it's the fact that you really don't want to do these things during the school year.
No, it's very difficult to do during the school year, 'cause it's very disruptive
Okay, that
to the
was, I think
process.
that's an
I
aspect.
do try to do these during the
Yeah.
summer, and we just ran out of
Yeah,
time.
but again, let me emphasize, and I'm not speaking just for me,
Yeah.
people with kids in the school,
Mhm.
that right after Newtown, felt good about allocating money to fix issues and make the school more secure. There are people out there that believe as soon as I vote for it at town meeting, it's not gonna be very long before this is done. It's almost certainly gonna be done, just talking average Bolton taxpayer, with kids in the school. It's almost certainly gonna be done this summer, and my kid's gonna start going to school on September 1st, and they're gonna be safer. And I think a lot of people will be surprised that we're sitting here on March 4th, and the doors haven't been addressed.
Well, the exterior doors have.
I understand, but-
And that was, to me, a priority.
Well, of course, it's-
Just to
it's
seal
all-
the exterior of the
But
building.
given the pipeline constraint that you have.
Yes.
You know, this should have taken priority over the rugs, the flooring.
Well, the rugs were also done in the summer while the doors were being done. That was all.
I understand, but, you know, if,
But that's to his point, they
yeah,
still,
that's,
the
you know,
rugs
the
should
interior, to us, the interior doors issue should have had priority over, I mean, if there's anything that's gonna be delayed, it should have been the rugs from a safety perspective.
that could have been pushed off
So
to this
moving-
summer rather than the locks.
Moving forward then, what you know of your scope coming up, if you were to throw this right at the top of your priority list, timing-wise, when do you think you can get it done by?
I would say we should have this done by the first month of summer. Is right now my goal to have this completed, right when the kids get out of the building.
So starting it as soon as they leave for the
Yeah, I'm
summer?
working now with a couple different vendors, looking at different locking mechanisms for the doors, different options, because
And then
there's
be
so
ready to
many
go.
now. The technology is changing daily on what we have for locks.
So let me ask, so you've also asking for another $15,000.
Yes, that's the second part of the interior door locks. Interior door locks run about 500 to 700 per lock, and we have about 50 or so classrooms, 50 to 60 classrooms and learning spaces. So these two here combine to create a finished project.
And that was a two-phase approach last year as well?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember, this 15 is new to me.
The 15 was always there.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I thought we gave, because
Probably accelerated.
No, you're right, because remember I brought up the
You know
fact
what, this
that-
is something we pulled in.
Yeah, that's what it
Right,
wasn't there. Yeah.
Well, we pulled in the 60,000 because that wasn't there for the exterior doors.
Pulled in at someone, all of the 23.5,
No,
we
this-
thought
I
it was.
thought the 60,000 was added by the capital planning committee.
It was.
Yeah, this
Okay.
wasn't on the original,
And then this was
this
pulled
was the-
in.
these were the minutes from
Well,
the original
I'm
meeting.
trying to remember what this looked like, but I think we pulled this in from
Take care of just
15 instead of done in
You do
14.
the glass.
And I just don't remember that there was a second, there was a two-phase.
yeah, I got the sense of us walking out of town meeting when when we left here saying, yes, here's what we wanted to do, that every project you were asking for, minus the AC, you got fully funded. That was
Mhm.
my feeling. But even,
And it hurt financially, but we felt good about it because we were getting, some pressure from,
No, I used that.
and we're concerned about the safety of the schools. And
I will take a
so
look at that.
it was, it's hard to swallow that. Granted, to Stasha's question, the answer is the first of summer. We've gone a whole school year with money in the bank that didn't get spent. And I think it's unnerving to, and I've heard from some parents that, it was an issue that was supposed to be addressed that didn't get addressed. Take it for what it's worth. I understand there are competing priorities, but what it does for someone like me is it makes it difficult to think about future projects, because if there's a rigorous bidding process and there's scheduling and there's all this stuff, for me, I look at someone who do stuff and say, well, Bill's got a lot on his plate because he still hasn't even gotten to some of the stuff we gave him last year. And so if those things are getting done this year, in the next fiscal 15, then these new things, we can wait a year because they're probably not gonna get done anyway.
It's almost like we feel like, was there too much on your plate for the 1 year?
It was a busy year. With the short summer, we did have, the school year didn't let out to the very end of June last year, but,
Another one this year.
right, it's gonna be another one this year, it's gonna be busy.
So what do you do during the breaks, the vacation weeks?
We try to, if we can do any of the capital projects that aren't too disruptive, we do try to do them, but most of them do fall into the summer break. Becomes
even
a busy time.
like one door lock. Time the kids get out of school, right?
Mhm.
Whoever is there, from kids are gone, so from 3 to 4, rip out the old lock, put in, you got one door done, right? And
Can't do
then
it?
Move on to the next.
Then you gotta make sure that everyone's got both sets of keys.
Yeah, that's true.
There's challenges.
There's
There's challenges to it. I do see
That
that
would work.
point,
If
and
I were doing it in my house, that's what I would do.
I do try to do a project as scale of economy, get the crew in, get it done. It becomes cheaper rather than spreading it out and having them have to return.
But not only
multiple
that
times.
too, is what cost 22.5 a year ago now for the same amount of work, may cost 28.5.
Well, that may be the reason we've got now 37.5 on the budget. We're gonna take a look, I'll go back and.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
see
the
what
same
happens.
thing because I don't remember it was always a single-phase project because there are a lot of doors in that building.
And you're estimating the total cost was 37.5?
Yes.
Will be 37.5. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
As a two-phase product.
you're right. I mean, it might have been a two-phase project, but again, to Randy's point, we're like, all right, coming off the heels of Newtown, here's the, so we're gonna accelerate, and there you go.
Okay.
So I walked away thinking, and again, I felt good. We gave you all the money you were looking for, and plus. So it is a bit tough.
Now, this is a little bit out of order, but I want to keep with that article, which was Article 27 last year. So it had the exterior doors, had the interior doors, and it also had an intercom system,
Yes.
which I see down here. And of that 15,000, only 3,000 has been spent.
Right, actually, one of the things with the intercom system, we originally were looking at going into the building and pulling because it was an older system, pull the old system out and replace with a new system. We also have changed in the district over to a voice-over IP phone system, so it's a network-based phone system. Well, doing some research on the project, we don't like just to pull the trigger and say that's it. Doing some research, I spoke with our voice-over IP provider, and they had an option where we could utilize the voice-over IP system that we've already done and use that for the intercom.
So is that all you're going to spend, then, is the 3,000, you're done?
That should be done. So we were able to, rather than rip the entire system out and pull it, we were able to leverage the system we had by just a module, put the module in, and now the entire system works over our voice-over IP.
So
Does
Julie,
does that free us up some money?
what do we need to do to move that 10,
Up to maybe,
12,000 up to carpeting or?
Well, as I'm sitting here wondering about that, because although
Or on the other one, so.
although the detail,
no, we don't know yet.
although the detail breaks it out separately, what the town voted on was $97,000.
Yeah, for the four suite of products.
Yeah,
The
so
basket of goods.
yeah,
So we might not need to do anything.
I don't think they need to do
22,
anything.
80, yeah,
Well,
97.
no, because the flooring's in a different article.
The flooring's in a different article, but the door locks.
The door locks
right.
is fine.
Right.
If we're, yeah,
And
we
then-
have to understand that if that's really a 37.5.
Honestly,
Roger.
in that case, we could drop out the 15,000 from 2015 on the, on the door hardware replacement.
And just,
And
and
then
use
just-
the
and use the-
12,000 that you have left over?
Yes, I think we can fall in, through the competitive bidding process, I could make that work.
Even though you went over 6,000 on the exterior
Or
doors?
it's somewhere between 4 and 6. 'Cause
Yeah, I'm gonna get you an exact number, I'm kind of going off the top of my head, I may be a little bit off there, so.
Okay, okay. So now,
I might like the, not to jump ahead a little bit, but I might actually like the idea of, kind of leaving the strategy that we had, that we're discussing with the floor. And if you got a 12,000 surplus, you can use that towards your boiler study. That's just me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what are you doing? What are you
I'm jumping
suggesting?
ahead, so sorry.
12 is the perfect amount.
Oh, for the,
This
To jump over
is
to here.
perfectly,
oh,
boiler study 12.
Well, that would involve,
An article that reallocates it to a new project.
So, but the question really on the table here is, do we want to authorize Bill to take the $9,000 that's left from the intercom and apply it?
12,000.
About 12.
12,000.
12,000, I'm sorry, and apply it against the interior door hardware? Or do we want to tell him not to spend it and ask him to send, I guess, Julie a letter saying that the $12,000 is no longer required?
I think it's nice and neat to take the 12 from the same article and apply it to the same.
The 12 being the
Interior
flooring.
No, not
the floor.
12 was the intercom, which was tied into an article last year for the door hardware.
Right.
And we don't have to do any town meeting, we just tell Bill, there's your 12 from last year to pay for new door hardware and get them all done.
And then we don't have anything this year that we need to do.
Then we
For
get
door.
rid of Article 24?
Is that the 15,000?
No.
Interior
No.
door hardware?
Well, just let's just.
No.
Numbers
Am I
are,
jumping in?
no, numbers are too difficult.
But also with the stipulation that absolutely drop dead September 1.
Done.
Yeah.
Stasha, yes.
Yes.
So,
Yes, it would go,
Bill, what I'm gonna request you to do is to like redo the sheet
Okay.
and send it to me, and then, you know, and with conversations with Julie, gets harden up these numbers, that six, you know, the overrun and stuff. This is, we're just dealing with that other, the Article 27 from last year, and so we can really see how that all plays out and see what we may or may not have to do, and how we're gonna do it.
Okay, I'll get that
And
information.
then, so if you get that to her and to me, and then we'll make sure it gets back to everybody.
And to Stasha's point, do we also then recommend that Article 34 be taken over?
Probably, but let's see where let's get something clean. Yeah, probably, but we've got a little bit of time for that.
Well, I'd like to bring it up at tomorrow's,
Okay,
our Thursday's selectmen meeting.
Okay, let's get there. We'll get there. Okay, so now we have moved away from what in effect was Article 27 and related stuff to the boilers.
So the boilers. The boilers, currently we have oil-driven hot water boilers, a boiler in the building, and that is the $75,000 for the Emerson School 72-wing boiler, and there's also an $18,000 for the Florence Sawyer School hot water boiler, which is also oil-driven. I went out to bid, I started the bid process last year, went out to bids, and wound up, I'd say, taking a second look at it and thinking, is this the best approach that we could have? My thought is eventually that there may be the option of a natural gas line coming through the town that we could hook up to. A boiler installation is a 20-plus year installation. You know, it should be there for a long time, so I want to make sure the decision we make on the system is correct. I'm looking at doing a conversion over to propane, which would give us a more efficient system. It would allow us to use a banked type boiler, which would modulate and give us more efficiency. And by using propane, there's actually a cost savings, you know, not only on the delivery of the propane, but on the efficiency of the system. So I stepped back a little bit, took a step back to reassess, and in-house staff has engineered what I think is a pretty decent propane-driven system. I have a little more work to do. We have some contractors coming in to help us place where the tanks need to go. We also just recently went out to the MSBA, which is the Mass School Building Authority. They have an SOI, under one of their SOIs, it's a accelerated maintenance program.
SOI is a
Statement of intent.
Okay.
So they have all these.
Yes, right.
So they have a statement of intent. So we found that this year they were doing an accelerated repair. And what that does is, by going to MSBA, they'll come back, if we're chosen, they'll come back and assist us with the project, financially, engineering, cost-wise. So I thought that was a good option that we may be able to benefit from and see some cost savings here. So we've done some in-house maintenance on the boiler, you know, keeping everything going. And in turn, I'm working with MSBA now to try to get some additional funding and offsets for this project, as well as some engineering. And the hope is going to be that we do a conversion.
So is SBA small business?
No, MSBA is Mass School Building Authority.
Okay. So you're asking for another 12,
No,
the $12,000 for the replace?
we have boilers at Florence. That's
Oh, that's separate, okay.
it's
not
really a
engineering.
different project.
This is the 18 that we gave you last year.
Right. Plus the 75.
Plus the 75
But so
is
let's talk about the 18. So we gave you 18 last year to address, that was the cost of
The
the
hot-
time.
hot water heater.
the hot water heater.
Yeah.
Right, That
Yes.
hasn't been done yet.
That's also looking at a conversion to propane.
So, but where do we land, how do we get to the 18? Did we not do the work last year in thinking about alternative energy?
Correct.
And it was just we need to do this for insurance regulation or recommendation, and it's gonna be 18 to replace with a like system. And I'm just trying to figure out, because I always look at this as, again, we lost 18,000 for a year. We lost the use of 18,000 for a
Right.
year, and I'm trying to, not to put fault, I'm trying to figure out last year, what did we do wrong in the 18? And I
And the
guess,
75. And the
And the 75,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
and what we didn't do is, we were thinking like for like, and then when you start thinking about bids, then you think about alternative energy, but I'm just wondering why we didn't think about it
Prior to.
prior to that. Is something,
when-
is it
Right.
Was it somebody recommended it, or we just weren't thinking about it?
It was a recommendation. As I was going through the process and starting to do the bid process, I was bringing different companies and engineers in to discuss what we had there, and I was getting an overwhelming pushback that, why aren't you looking at propane here? This
But we
is,
weren't getting that one, because you came up with numbers, and so you talked to people last year too, to get those numbers, or were those numbers?
I
just
wasn't
yours?
getting that feedback.
You
I
weren't
was,
getting
no, I was getting, because I was looking at oil installers.
Yeah.
When I started bringing engineers in and different
Okay,
people in,
okay.
that's when I started getting a little different feedback, and, you know, rather than just say, nope, I'm gonna throw the blinders on, get this done, this is what we have, I'm gonna put it in.
No,
I tried to take a step back and look at it and say, what's gonna be the best for the next 20, 30 years? And this really, I think, is gonna be the best solution.
Propane's an interesting alternative, but right now, your oil tanks are inside the building.
No, they're outside,
They're outside?
outside the
They're
building.
buried?
I know I have one above-ground tank behind Emerson, which is
That's right, okay.
coming up onto, in the next few years, we'd have to talk about a replacement.
That's right.
So that's, I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
that would encompass this and get rid of that. And we have 2 underground oil tanks outside.
Okay.
So everything's outside, either above ground or underground.
All right, but you can't use those tanks for propane?
No, and
Okay.
I've worked with the propane company, and part of the contract would be they'd,
Take them out.
no, they wouldn't take those up, but they would
My
put
question
the
is, would
new
you-
tanks in.
Would you have to bury the propane?
Yes.
How can you do that when you're so close to wetlands all around you?
We've identified a few areas that we look like we could get those tanks, and that's gonna be part of the MSBA and part of the engineering that we're working on.
Okay, what other goals does MSBA have? Because they don't just come in and say, what do you want to do? They come in and say, okay, there's things we want to do, and if you've got a project that ties into what we want to do, then we can talk.
Right, this falls into their accelerated maintenance program, so it's a separate program in the MSBA that they look at roof repairs, windows, boilers.
Are they likely to tie some of that other stuff into this project?
No, it's just that. I had to write a statement of interest that specifically called out what we were gonna do, the equipment that I was looking at, and the process.
When do you hear from them, or how do you hear from them? What's the timeline, I'm sorry? The timeline
They
to,
operate differently than a normal contractor. They now have to come in and inspect it themselves.
after you've done the work?
When he gets significant interest. Michael Wood just went through a presentation on this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
And I've asked him to repeat it, and not at tomorrow's Tri-Town, but at a future Tri-Town, because the MSBA is involved in everything related to school construction, and their bid and specification design process would drive a normal town project nuts, because they basically come in and they take over the project.
This is an accelerated
Yeah.
project, they do call it out as an accelerated repair program. So the goal of theirs is that they make a quick decision, they get in, they work with us.
And they give you money?
They split it.
They split?
Yeah, usually there's a percentage based on.
So when we talk to people
some
that are
figures.
going out for grants on things, so they might be wanting to buy safety equipment, and you can, then applying for grants and to get the grant in, how do we know how much to authorize you if we think there's a grant? I mean, if there's and what the possibility of getting some money for this, and how do you weigh that?
Well, once I got the information back from MSBA, I would
The
like
other
to come back in and
the other
see if we
thing
talk
is-
about it, because
Yeah.
That would be,
it's a little bit of a change of scope. We want to make sure.
MSBA, I think, also requires that we spend the money and then they will reimburse
Okay,
us
gotcha.
a certain portion.
Oh, of course.
So Bill, I just want to clarify something. The hot water boiler replacement, the 5-year-old one, and the oil one, the 71 boiler,
Yes,
is that part of the 8 boilers at Fort Sawyer?
no.
No. So the study doesn't have anything to do with
either of those.
either of those two?
Correct, it has nothing to do
So
with those.
when these people came in, and the engineers and whatever, and put this bug in your head about propane, when was that, and what happened since then? Do we have a number as to what that might cost? Because everything's open beyond what we've already given you as far as 2015, there's no recommendations as to how much money you need to do that?
That would fall into the same budget. I'm working to make sure that anything we do for the conversion, one of my thoughts when we were looking at the propane was that it can't cost more than what we have allocated. So if they came in and said, oh, propane's gonna be great, but it's gonna be $380,000.
Who is they, and have they come in? Because my understanding, I'm just trying to get, is that they have come in already and
I'm sorry, I'm using that, really I mean,
talked about,
really I mean me, because I'm working with local vendors. I visited a local manufacturer, and I'm putting, between our in-house crew, we're trying to put pricing
so
together.
when do you think you'll get numbers for this, and when do you think you'll be able to start on this?
This also is a project that I'd look at having done by September 1.
Which one?
The
The two
boilers.
boilers?
The two
Oh, the two
boilers.
boilers?
Yes,
Propane, but that has to go out to bid?
yes, but the bid process would be, once I get through MSBA, if they do decide to take on this project, within a couple of weeks for the bid
We're waiting
process.
to hear from them.
And I wouldn't do these boilers anyway until the school year ended. I'd do some preliminary work, but the bulk of the construction would be
But you'd
till
have it
kids
ready to
are
go, I mean,
I'd
all
have
the
the-
stuff,
The equipment would be in place,
stuff.
everything would be ready, and we'd be going when the kids left the buildings.
providing it's the same amount of money.
Correct.
If you switch to propane,
Yes.
you abandon those underground oil tanks. As we all know, there's problems with underground tanks that need to be removed and remedied. Have you thought about the cost of that?
Yes, with the above-ground tank, we'd have to remove the above-ground tank, because that's the one that runs the 71 boiler.
Yeah.
We have a second boiler in that building, a small one that runs the 22 wing. That is gonna stay for right now, that boiler still runs, so that oil tank, the underground stays, so we'd only be removing the
Okay.
above-ground tank, and that was part of the consideration of this.
Yeah, because if you make those tanks obsolete, I think you have to take them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, can we just add, the last piece is to understand, for me anyway, is to understand the replace 8 boilers. So this is a study that then the primary expenditures will be in 2016 and 17?
Or beyond. What I'd like to do, we have 8 boilers in the Florence Sawyer School. Because of the layer of the room, they did a bank of small 8 boilers. The way they designed it, the stack sits right over it, so the only way to really clean them is to pull the whole stack off. It's very difficult, it's
The
expensive.
stack being the exhaust?
The exhaust, correct. We did that this year, but one thing we found was that some of the burner boxes are starting to crack. So we went in this year and replaced 5 of them, 5 of the 8, but it's a problem. The systems aren't running well. So what I'd like to do is have a company come in, have an engineering firm come in and take a look at these boilers and give us a recommendation of a multi-year plan, what they think today, what they look like today, when they feel a replacement would need to be had, and some costs of that, and then we could plan out. If they could come in and say that the repairs you've done create, make these boilers safe, and we can wait out a few years, I would bring that back
So,
to the board.
the number is 8, not 12.
12.
8. It says
8
8.
boilers.
8 boilers, but $12,000.
No, but I guess we're looking at the Article 32, which was for the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it says in here, in the summary, it says the 12 oil-fired boilers have been experiencing. This should be 8?
8.
Okay. Okay,
How much did those 5 burner boxes cost to repair?
They ran about
yeah.
$1,000 to $1,200 each, and then we had to pull the exhaust pipes up, so it was quite expensive.
So you didn't come to us for money, where'd you find that?
I did that within our scheduled maintenance budget, because it was under $10,000, and it was, but part of what I consider is general maintenance on the systems, but eventually that,
See where I'm going with this. Right.
You can find.
You did a great job.
Just keep doing it.
Keep on doing
Yeah.
it. Take that 12 and get it under 10, and you're off to the races.
I'm sorry, we're running a little late, folks. Glad to see such a full room now, it's very exciting. The last piece is the $25,000 for repair and replace 6th, 7th, 8th grade lockers,
this is,
and that looks like a 2-year project.
I honestly think this could be spread out over 4 years, and it should be spread out. and that was one of the things I spoke with the finance committee about. If we did this over a 4-year.
You're the NRSD Finance Committee.
I think he's talking the capital plan.
I'm sorry, I'm
Oh,
very sorry,
sorry.
capital.
Okay.
So speaking with the capital committee, we talked about spreading this out over 4 years. The feedback I'm getting of the lockers are breaking down. You know, we do repairs on them, they're starting to fall apart, the doors are breaking, the kids can't lock the lockers all the time, so they want to get in and assess and start replacing some lockers and go through the 400 lockers in the school.
Do you think you could start it, not this year?
Absolutely.
Not in 2015?
Absolutely, yes. I think if we broke this down to a 4 or even 5-year project and allocated 10 to 12,000 and looked each year and then say, hey, this year we got through this floor, we could do a grade at a time, take a look at it, and then just like the PA system, a lot of that is until we actually get in there and start taking stuff apart. You know, my hope is that we wouldn't need to replace everything, we could do a lot of repairs here.
How old are the lockers?
Well, the school was built in, what was it, 98? In that
I
range?
should know.
Yeah, I think it was, so,
Trying to figure that out. No, not yet, I wasn't that good.
so we're probably looking at about 15 years or so.
15 years old, okay.
Does anyone else have any questions at this point for Bill?
So what does he recommend, what do you recommend on the lockers to make it 12/5 starting in fiscal 16?
Let's say 12/5, starting fiscal 16.
10 a year for 5
We could
years.
even do
Yep.
10 for 5, I think
Yeah.
would be more realistic, and
Okay.
it would give me the
That's
ability to
Yep, 10 for 5.
take a look this year, really assess them, and come up with a plan that I can
Okay.
be very detailed next year for it, with the lockers.
So, where we're leaving now is to get together with Julie, take a look at these amounts that were left over from last year, come up and figure out where we can, where there's overages and underages, lessers and overs,
Yes.
and figure out how we can find the money, and it may then change some of the article dollars. What's your request?
I think it eliminates 3 articles.
I
Well,
think,
it gets rid of, we get 25 out, the interior doors probably
35
are
is
coming
gone.
out, right?
35 is gone,
That's
34.
the lockers.
34 is gone, because we spent 12 from the
No,
Unicom.
25,000.
33, we spent 9.
I think there's one still left, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Article 33 goes down to 5.
right, so, and that was the flooring replacement we took down, because we found the savings on what we did this year, the 15 on the door hardware.
34 is gone.
34 and 35, I think we go.
And then we can take the lockers and push those out and reallocate, redistribute that.
So what are we left with?
Left with 32, which is the 12K.
Yeah,
Left with the 5,000 for 33. And that's it.
that's it? Okay, so, when do you think you can be back with Julie on that?
This week,
Can we,
Are you here, when?
by next week.
Okay.
We'll figure it
Yeah,
out by next week.
okay, good. Emails work.
Yeah, that's what Julie and I usually email back and forth.
we might be able to combine 32 and 33 like we did.
Yeah, we did
last year.
before, yeah, that's good. Yeah, we don't want a $5,000.
Right.
Okay,
And as soon as I hear from MSBA and that process,
That would be
I will
really-
come back
yeah.
and we can sit down
yeah,
and,
just call
Go
in
through
and
that.
and set something up. Do you have an idea on the timing of that, so that we can?
I don't, I'm hoping within the next 30 days or
Oh,
so.
okay, great.
Because it is an accelerated plan, so,
Yeah.
and it was
That would be
submitted.
good.
It was voted on last week and submitted, so
Okay,
I'm hoping shortly.
very good, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for
I
being.
appreciate your feedback.
We're glad that we're working together on this.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, good seeing you. Bye.
Yeah, we'll probably bring another chair up. Can you just grab another chair? There? Okay, I'm just going to apologize. Anybody that knows advisory knows that this is not unusual. It's important stuff. So now we're going to welcome Sheila Janowski of the Council on Aging, coming up talking about her budget, and I think you're being joined by Patty Berkman. That's department number 541.
Should we introduce ourselves?
I just did, but you can. Maybe you don't
The
know.
only person I don't know is Brad, and I'm Hanny, I'm just a leftover. I'm the town leftover.
And I'm Sheila.
Sheila Steve.
Okay, welcome. I've got to get myself organized here a little bit, sorry, folks.
That's okay. When you have all the papers in front of you.
Yeah, I do, lots of paper. Okay, so let me just do kind of just an overview right now with the Council on Aging, which is at Department 541. This year, for fiscal year 2015, you're requesting a total of $62,004, which compared to the budget in 2014 of $51,872, so an increase of about $12,000. Of that, the wages are $47,058 to $40,578, and we will ask you to probably just walk us through line by line what is here. I assume, Sheila, the salary is yours?
The salary is mine, van drivers, well, that's totally
Well,
real.
it just hold on a second, so, I'm sorry.
Shouldn't we be using the advisory approved column?
Yes, and I don't know why I don't have that. Well, I can get it. 541, right?
Yeah. Because
Sorry.
you're using what was requested.
It was 51,872, so it's up $10,132, right?
And we made a few tweaks.
Okay. Well, since,
No, it's up 11,642.
because of the, that's going to be the COLA, right? Let me just, hold on a second. Sorry, folks. No, maybe you can share with me if you'd like. As soon as I can find it. Oh.
You want us to
Okay.
make a copy of this?
No, I got it. Okay, so, right, so it's, the advisory approved amount is a total of, I'm sorry, it's between two pages, if I don't get there. 63, right? 63,514.
Is that with your COLA?
That's with the COLAs.
Okay.
Compared to 60, last year, 51,872, with the increases around a little under $12,000. So, walking back to the salary,
Figured in the COLAs, not to worry about the numbers that this doesn't agree with.
the salary.
No, I know that.
Yeah, so you requested $28,678, which was level funded, but what we have here is we've applied a 2% COLA on that, so that brings you up for the salary to $30,188.
Yeah.
And then wages, is it?
Wages, well, the MOD is $5,000. That's an estimated figure, depends on the usage of the MOD van, which is totally reimbursed by MOD themselves. They reimburse us for any costs at all, which is the gasoline costs, the van driver's salary. So that all comes back to us. But it's included in the budget,
That goes into the general fund.
general fund. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's wages.
The wages would be for the outreach coordinator, who we just hired, who's here tonight, Lisa.
That Lisa?
Yes,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Should have recognized you from the picture in the senior newsletter.
Okay, and that's also for the, at $15 an hour. We budgeted for $14 an hour, but we advertised for the $15 an hour, thinking we'd get a better.
And how many hours is Lisa?
12 hours a week.
Okay.
Okay, and then also request for fiscal year 15, a program director, which would be 8 hours a week, and that would be at, what did I put down here? $13 an hour.
And I'll
That's-
address all this.
So that's a new position.
And I'll
right?
address all
A new
that.
position. The outreach coordinator, of course, is not a new position.
That was carryover from,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, this $6,500 is purchase of services.
Why don't we just hold off your way? I think that, why don't we talk about
Okay.
that, what we call above the line kind of.
Okay, let's start with the above the line. Now, I will give this to you, because these are basically my numbers, as long as you promise doesn't use them as I say it.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't allow that, do I, Randy?
Is this school?
Yeah, no, I don't allow it. Just don't allow it. There's two more. Okay, basically what I've given you is that we're asking for a basically round numbers, $10,000 increase. And it's based on a number of things. But first of all, I thought it'd be nice to know what the other towns are doing. So Harvard has 6,000 residents, their the COA budget is 85,000, so they spend $14.20 per resident. And they have 137 seniors. Foxborough has 5,000 residents, and they have a budget of 58,000 plus. So it comes out to 1167. So obviously Foxborough pays less, a lot less than Harvard. And I'm not sure how many seniors they have. Bolton has a population of 5351, and our budget, our requested budget, not including the COLA, because I didn't know that until this morning, was 61,954, which comes out 1157, which is even lower than Foxborough's. If you took our budget last year with the number of seniors we have and level funded this budget, we'd be spending $9.69 per senior for services. Okay, so 20% of the people in this town are over 60. It's a little terrifying. We have 170 people between 80 and 100. I basically believe, and I think we all do, that intergenerational towns are much more effective and much better for the town. That you keep your young people with no kids, you keep your kids with kids, you keep the, those who kids have gone off to college, and you keep your seniors, and it makes for a much healthier town. So what the two things we're requesting are a piece of software that has been developed by a company called, and it's called My Senior Software, and also a program director for 8 hours a week. Basically, the software allows us to access a huge amount of information, and it benefits a lot of people. The software company that does this solely deals with senior software. They service 75% of the Council on Ages in Massachusetts, and now are expanding in Illinois and California. But their whole focus is on senior centers. Everything, whether it's government reports or anything else, it's all focused on what senior centers need. The greatest benefit is for the outreach worker. Right now, we have the most ridiculous, imagine taking 978 seniors and getting all their data on an Excel sheet. That's what we have right now. It is the most ridiculously cumbersome thing to work through. But we have the data, which is the big thing, because all that data can be imported into the new software. So we're up and running right off. I talked to Gary Perwack about this. He looked at it. He thinks it's a really good idea. It's well spent money.
Can you tell us what that amount is for the?
It's $1,250 a year for the initial year, and then it's $700 a year after that. They make constant updates. They coordinate with the state, all the state's elderly services. So all those type of things they are wrapped into one. Number one, the elderly worker has just the 80s to 100, has 170 people that she needs to contact, keep in touch with, work with, help them figure out how to stay in their homes and address, not only physical issues, but other issues. 12 hours a week isn't a lot. This makes her a whole lot more effective. The database is not only, it also helps Tamara, who is the town nurse, more effectively do her job. And it's it meets HIPAA requirements, so it's all confidential. The software has different levels of access, where Tamara and Lisa would have total access. We can give different types of access to different groups in town, such as public safety. Public safety could go to somebody's house, a senior's house, they're by themselves. We could, my hope is that we can get emergency numbers for all the seniors in town, and they can go in the system, and if there's nobody home, they can call that, they can get access to that emergency number and call someone who knows the person. And the police, all of public safety, fire, police and EMTs. It saves directors time because it also uses scheduling and planning and reporting to the state. It can produce all the reports, and it takes all that data that's in there and spits it all out. So you don't have to spend hours trying to find data. I mean, that's half the thing about doing state reports, is finding the numbers. It also helps with writing grants. Now, grants are really nice things because we have people grants. But digging for the data is a nightmare. This will produce the data we need, so we can do grants. There was one grant that Barbara Brown was talking about that, I think it was a state grant to help seniors make their houses so that fire, you want to mention it, what it was, Barbara?
Yes, and 200 cities and towns received the grant.
What's for what, I'm sorry? What was
It
it?
assists seniors with fire prevention.
Fire prevention in their own home.
In their own homes. So there are lots of things like that. There are lots of other types of grants too out there, but we, one of the jobs of Sheila and this new program director will be accessing those grants. And also, we have some volunteers who were willing to work on it too. And then the town clerk, it has this wonderful inbuilt system where if, for the seniors located, listed, for all the people who work on the STRIP program, and all of a sudden,
That's the
they
senior
need-
tax.
the senior tax
Relief.
rebate program, they can send out email blasts, they can send out phone blasts. If the chief wants everyone, all the seniors to know something really important, he can access it too. So it has all these different pieces that to me make it so worthwhile. Now, the other part that we're asking for is a program director.
We're still above the line, right?
Well,
We're above the
actually,
line.
the software was not above the line. The software is appearing, where's the software appearing?
Someone break out for me, someone break out for me the 13.4, how much is program director?
Where's
how
the
much is up?
13, where
That's
is,
the wages amount.
okay, it breaks out,
It's up 6,500 from last year.
yeah, basically, well, and when we did our little jiggling, which is,
Yeah.
it comes out to 5,850 for the program director. What happened was the previous outreach worker had been making less than $15. And when we decided to go out, we decided we'd get better qualified candidates. And it's turned out we came up with
All right, well,
incredible.
what's the balance, or do I have to get out my calculator? 13.4 minus
So-
58.50 is,
Well, the total with salary,
My salary.
it's 28,678. This is without your COLA, remember?
No, not,
No, it's not.
no, we're talking about the
Just the wages
13.4.
line.
Just the
That's
wages.
$7,550.
pardon me?
75.50, so that would be for the outreach.
58.50 for program.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
the outreach worker is 7,500 and the
Right.
program director is
Now,
5850.
the 69, I'm sorry, the 6,900 that was budgeted in 2014, that's just the outreach.
That was just the outreach worker,
Yes.
Okay,
right?
so for the outreach worker, we're looking at an increase of 6,900 to 7,550.
Correct.
Right,
And then the
$600.
5850 is a new
And
position.
also, because there has been a break, we lost the outreach worker in December and we didn't hire, and our $600 is gonna be left in the account this year.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of big bucks. The thing about the program director, right now, we offer limited programs, but with a person that is solely focused on this, or one of the focuses, well, they can expand our limited programs, use town buildings more efficiently, and there are lots of ideas of what kind of programs they are offering. I mean, you're talking about 20% of the people who live in this town that, we can do better. It's as simple as that. We can do better.
We like to draw in
You
young
know,
seniors too.
last year, when the Council on Aging came to the advisory committee, we talked about increasing the hours for the outreach worker, and we increased it from,
Eight to 12.
in terms of dollars, it was from 2,900 to 6,900.
Yeah.
Well, some of the 2,900
And
was
we
paid
asked,
for by other people.
excuse me,
No, but it
we asked for the Council on Aging to go and look at, to see if there were agencies out there like, for shared resources, like we do with Neshoba Boards of Health, like we're doing for the Planning Board, like we do for the assessors, where we share resources with other towns. And you're coming back to us with a request to increase headcount.
Well, we're coming back with you with two things. One is the outreach worker. The town nurse and the outreach worker work very closely together. 12 hours, the outreach worker, the past outreach worker, because obviously Lisa just started today, so we can't ask her, never had enough time. There are so many, the outreach worker accesses lots of other agencies to help with her work. But it still takes time to coordinate with all those
I'm not
agencies.
questioning the need for an outreach worker. I'm questioning adding headcount to the
Well,
town.
the only headcount we're adding is the program director for 8 hours a week. The outreach
Well, I
worker
think you
is,
had an opportunity to look at finding an agency or something to provide someone to do the outreach, and we've gone to just hire
Well,
someone.
you,
Harvard has an outreach worker 20 hours a week.
You know, we share a veterans agent with other towns too. and
I
stuff like
think you're
that.
overlooking, we probably don't have 170 veterans between the age of 80 and 100. We probably don't have another 200 between the ages of
No,
70 and
okay.
80.
Well,
These are a lot
I
of
go to
people.
the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, I go to the assessors, I go to the housing program that we're now in conjunction with, that's headquartered in Hudson. You know, there's more and more regionalization in using those resources. And I don't know why we're not going.
Well, we are,
that same-
I think the point is that you need a point person in town to coordinate those resources. She's using, the outreach worker uses a huge amount of resources from out of town, but you need someone to coordinate them so that the seniors understand what resources they have, what they can apply for.
Then what is the role of the president of the council on aging?
Are we talking about the director?
The director, I'm
The
sorry.
director is the director of the senior center. She manages the programs. Well, maybe you should speak to that. You're the director, so.
I manage all the budgets, I manage the town budgets, the annual reports, the state grants. I do the MOT van, I dispatch the MOT van, I do a monthly invoice to MOT. I keep the books, I make sure that I'm getting reimbursed by MOT. I have to socialize with the seniors and talk to the seniors and get a rapport with the seniors.
Okay, so who does the outreach person report to?
She works with Sheila. They work together.
And the software that you're asking for is going to help free up your time
It'll free up her time.
and the outreach worker.
Absolutely. I mean, if you'd say, I mean, imagine.
So would it free up your time for 8 hours a week
For programs?
I work,
programs?
no, I work 20 hours a week and I'm straight out with the 20 hours. I mean, I'm not a full, well, you consider me benefited, but 20 hours a week is very limited compared to other towns that have full-time directors.
So Bob, 8 hours a week for this program director, right?
Mhm.
And you're saying share it with someone else, you still gotta
No,
pay
no,
them.
he's saying the outreach.
No, I don't
He's
think
saying
so. I think
that-
we're talking about-
I'm talking outreach plus
You're
this.
talking
And-
outreach,
and-
not program director.
And the issue is one of, these positions will grow, is my belief. And headcount, the expense is not in wages, the expense is in benefits. And that's why I want to go down.
These are all part-time
That's,
people.
at present, I agree, at present. But at the same time, you are sitting here laying the groundwork for expanding their hours in the future.
Well, we've seen that
Not
with outreach.
necessarily, Bob.
Well, we'll see what happens with outreach. I mean, I guess my question is, and forgive me for asking an awkward question, but I think I can get my head around the function of outreach. And it's a specialized function, and I get it, because we've been over it the past couple of years. What I can't get my head around today is, and I think Bob alluded to this, or you just asked, is the director, Sheila's position, you know, in my opinion, I don't see the bang on the program. I know what the program director is designed to do, but I guess I see that as something that Sheila should be doing.
Do you want to address that? Sheila
If
feels
you want to
that
give me a full-time position, I possibly
Yeah,
could.
but
Sheila,
Sheila, we
I can't
talked
do it
about the
with
bus
one
trip. I mean, I know we've talked about some of the programs that we've already had, that we've tried to make more robust, and there was some lack of participation on some of the trips, et cetera, but we're now, I guess my awkward question is, I'd like to get a little bit of a better handle as to what the current program director does, or what the current council on aging director role was designed to do. And I understand it's 20 hours a week, but if we're freeing up capacity on some great software, which sounds like I'm
I
the
mean, I
the
think it
software.
benefits everybody in town.
If it benefits everybody, and to not to pick at anyone's words, but it frees up capacity, why can't it free up capacity to plan programs
Well, I
at the director
think
level and
within
not need a
6
program
months,
director?
once we put this in place. Now, the other piece is that Sheila has told us that she's planning on retiring next year, aren't you? When
Couple of
she's-
years. Don't tell them what I'm gonna be home.
Next-
No, I would
next
never
year's
tell.
different. Which one is it? Okay.
A couple of years, maybe sooner.
Maybe sooner. So one of the things is that if we can have, within 6 months, if we can build some programs in, this program director may morph into the senior center director. I mean, what we're looking for is some consistency over time, as things change, things always change, but at the same time, to get the services to some of these seniors that we haven't been providing. I mean, the programs we're providing are on a very, very limited basis, and there have been volunteer groups who have helped to expand them a little more, but we really haven't had the focus on expanding these. And I think we owe it to the 20% of the town. Their taxes are paying a lot of money to keep the school going, the DPW, the police, and everybody else, especially the school, because they don't cost you anything. So I just think for $10,000, it's worth investing the money now. We'll look
Well, it's
at
not
it again.
10,000,
Well,
it's
and it's
really,
not really,
it's
well,
5,850 for the
And
program.
not all
next
20%
year,
are used.
we'll come back and look at it again and see how effective it's
Because
been. See if it's accomplished what it's meant to do. And then if it hasn't, then we'll can, But you've got to take a few steps forward before you can see where you're going. And the plan is to get someone who's really focused on programs.
Well, I'm having trouble now understanding why we'd want to create a new position if a year from now or 18 months from now, we may not need that position.
But
I can't tell you how.
Because it's going to get rolled into another position.
It may do that, Bob. You're absolutely right. And we may find that that things have gone so well that we don't need a separate position, that when Sheila leaves and the positions change, I can't tell you what's going to happen in 2 years. All I can tell you is that we're trying at this point to expand the program to access more of the seniors in town who have never been served, we've never really provided services for. And I think it's important, but that's up to you guys. I mean, it's a small amount of money across the board. It brings us right in line with the other towns that surround us. To me, it's so important to keep seniors in their homes with, we don't offer a lot. If you lived in Boston, seniors can go to everything, we don't offer a lot. Let's see if we can offer to make it more attractive to stay in Bolton. Because in the long run, you all know, it will save you money. Yep. It's the bottom line, we all know that.
$6,800 is totally reimbursed. That's on our budget. That's totally reimbursed by Mott.
Yeah, that's already.
So
And
we get that money back.
I really want to see if we can get some more grants going, because that brings money in. I mean, we may be able to subsidize a lot of programs just through grants.
So can we hear, Brad, do you have what are your thoughts on this?
I have no problem providing, I like the idea of the software. I'm concerned, given the conversation of the software, conversation we had a couple weeks ago, last week with the police center, and we get a software and suddenly we need a new server and we need updates.
This is all web-based.
This is all web-based, and Gary's looked into it.
The complexity's not nearly the
Yeah,
same.
it's-
No, it's nothing like Chiefs, nothing.
So, everything you said sounds great. I'm still having a hard time adding the head count.
Okay,
That's all.
that's fine.
Okay, go on.
I kind of feel the same way, especially when you make the comment, you roll this person into somewhere else if we find it, we don't need it after 6 to 8 months of,
No, I mean, we're talking a year, at least a year, to get the programs up and running, and,
even in a
We
year.
can't, I don't see that you could take this person out once you got them.
no, we wouldn't, no.
That's kind of what.
I didn't mean to, I missed.
Why can't we make a concerted effort to carve out more of Sheila's time to focus on programs?
Well, that's how
And
I feel.
maybe offshoot some of the, I heard you describe what you do, and what I heard was a lot of accounting, administrative functions and paperwork that I can't
Running the
help but
senior
to think
center.
could be done.
Will this software help you with all of that kind of stuff?
I should hope so.
So if it relieves some of your time,
Well, that's the comment, that's
Yeah.
the point.
you
I
know,
was
that,
trying
I know, we're all trying to make that point.
to- yeah.
It frees up your time to where you might be able to do this without another person.
And who does, again, forgive me, does Sheila report to the
Council on Aging.
Council on Aging?
Yes.
And so you guys set her priorities, like where she should be?
Well, we don't
I'm sorry.
micromanage it.
No, but do you have an annual process where you kind of figure out where the majority of the time is going and what? And again, forgive me for asking these questions. I'm just trying to figure out if we're getting the most, if we have the director focused on the most important things to like the seniors. A lot of the things that you described are not senior, they're not senior
Adding
facing. And, exactly. And I'm just trying to figure out if we've embarked on a journey to try to get that more efficient. Sounds like the software may be a good step, but then the director should be doing the things that are.
But I do the trips now.
Yeah, no,
I do
we
plan
talked about
trips.
those before, yeah, and they sound, and you wanted to add some, or wanted to give you some
But
funding.
you're talking about also me going and taking like the outreach. Well, that's home visits. I can't leave. I'm the only.
No, they're not talking about
outreach, I'm not at all.
We're just talking about programs.
Okay, you're talking about
Like,
programs.
I don't know what goes into a program, whether it's calling a vendor and scheduling, hey, why don't you come here and do a program? Is
And I
it
do
just
have
one
them to the-
call, is it?
Yeah. They do
Well,
come
that's
to
what
the
I'm trying-
senior center.
I haven't said anything.
Our
yet,
time
so-
is limited at the senior center.
I know.
You know, we're only open the 3 days a week.
I'm gonna go
9 to
with
2.
Stasha, and then I'm gonna make
Okay,
comments.
so I'll keep quiet.
No, that's okay, I don't need to do that, but we're running,
No, no.
yeah, Stasha, do you have any comments or
Learning
questions?
a lot. Just one question was whether or not the program director goes external to all of the town, or whether it's just within the senior center?
The program director
The new
would
position.
try to get programs to draw in the younger seniors and have programs, say, not during our 9 to 2 hourly timeframes, because it only brings in the older seniors and the younger seniors are still working. So a program director would call up the library or call up the public safety building and have programs, say, during the evening or during Fridays or during weekends.
Okay.
It also would, the person could work on programs that, I mean, we have, in the last 10 years, we have built a lot of space. We have the public safety building, the library, the Houghton
Yep,
building,
we're gonna get
even though we took this away.
Schools.
The schools. So, I mean, it would be developing programs primarily for seniors, but not limited to seniors. So if somebody that was 50, heaven forbid, some of us were still 50, was interested, wouldn't, they were, you know, they would be open to them too. So there are lots of different programs that.
So it's kind of, there's an out, so I guess I'm trying to get my handle around the job description differences between outreach coordinator.
Oh, outreach is solely focused on contacting seniors in town, making sure they're safe in their homes, that things are working well for them.
So
that
more of
they're
a nuts and bolts versus
very much nuts and bolts person.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
So,
totally,
It's like a
this is
social
totally,
work.
yeah, it's
But
not,
not
yeah,
necessarily
exactly.
a degree.
And no, this is totally different from running programs
Okay.
that benefit seniors and other people in town.
So my 2 cents then, now that my question's answered?
Yeah.
I support it. I would say that if it ends up going forward, to collect that data, have hard data, how many people attend, what, you know.
That's why we want to solve.
Yeah, there you go. I think maybe they go hand in hand, because I think, you know, I would hope that there's enough of the 20% that are in town that would start to access it, and then it's kind of like the chicken before the, you know, which, how do you justify something if you don't have the people utilizing it, but you don't have it there for them to utilize? So I can see where the committee could be torn on this one, but I would like to see it started and tried and backed up, and maybe if it's not working out, then we get
None
rid of the position.
of us are locked in. I mean,
So I'll just make a few comments because I've been quiet. People, several people know that I also am involved with seniors in town. I'm president of Friends of Holton Senior, co-president. So this is, I'm not, I hope that I'm can really look at this fairly, and what's being brought forward. Impartially. I had the job as a program director in Concord, so I know what it takes to be a program director, and it's a bigger town, granted, but they replaced me when I left because of family commitments with 2 people. So it's a big job, a bigger job than a director can do with all the other things that she has to do. I think you're looking at less than $6,000, a commitment to 20% of the population in town, a way of involving people more, and really bringing value to citizens that live in the town of Bolton. We spend money on a myriad of things in town. We just, with our kids in a lot of different ways, and on other folks. And I think we're looking at a small amount. This will be somebody that, it's not like you're hiring somebody that I'm sure will have some background and will go through an interview process. It's unlikely, I can tell you, in Concord, they would never hire somebody for 22 hours a week as a program director. They would much rather do 2 10-hour program directors to avoid the benefits piece of it. So I see only positive things here in being able to spread the services to our seniors, to other people, and bring some value to them.
I'd also, you really have to think about the program, as I said, not only bringing programs to seniors, but other people in town. But it does keep your, if I was a senior, obviously I'm a senior, seniors have a little more time on their hands. And so they're interested in doing things. Keeping a senior in their house and contributing to the town, if they sell their house, we all know what happens.
Okay, so I want to see if there's any comments from people out in the audience. David?
Just a question, I want to make sure the software that Penny's talking about, that is in this $63,000 budget?
Yes, yeah, it's underneath at the bottom. It says software, $1250 at the very bottom, David, on the right-hand side.
And I just can say I share the committee members who are very, very skeptical about adding a position. I would lean more toward maybe giving a couple more hours to Sheila than to having a third person.
I'd just like to say that the town of Stowe has a full-time director who works often overtime. She has a full-time outreach coordinator, and they just hired a part-time assistant outreach coordinator.
Do they have program people, or do you know? Do you have a program director, or do you know that?
Well, the director of the Council on Aging, and then they have a board. The basic people in the trenches, so great.
So, anybody else have any comments? Yes, Barbara?
Yeah, we're also hoping with the program director that they will take on doing quite some grant work so that we can bring monies back in, not just see it go out.
Okay, good. Okay, so where's the committee?
I have a further question.
Yep.
On the outreach worker, the increase from 6,900 to 7,550, is that an increase in hours, or is
No,
that
it was
just?
just an increase in dollars from $14.15 to $15.
The amount of hours that we
12
established
hours.
last year is working well.
Yeah, well, no, she doesn't have enough hours. She doesn't know it yet, so let's not tell her. It's her first day, so we're not gonna tell her she's gonna be flat out. No, are there enough hours? The last outreach worker said, no, I don't have enough hours. But, it's what we can afford right now, and we wanna try to keep it, the software will help immensely, because the amount of time we're dealing with the data for 978 people is huge.
Not to overlook, the increase in purchase of services was from $4,350 to $6,500.
Yeah, we added on, because we hoped that if we approved the program director, we would have a little more money to spend on programs.
And so that's the difference,
That's the difference, correct, Sheila?
Yes.
Yes.
And
I think it's all broken down in there.
and that's it. I would be absolutely okay with the overall increase to the budget, but I would want to take a measured step and see how the software works, but give them the extra money so that they do have more money for the programs.
But not the program director.
Correct. Because I feel, I just think there's going to be some enough economies in there where the current staff in hand, along with, to your point, time on your hands, volunteers, are gonna be able to help come up with programs. But the money is there to help fund those programs. And that's where I would fall.
Connie?
No, after hearing what you said, and you've been in those shoes, and I would go for it.
Okay, so. Okay.
You guys decide.
No, we can't leave. So, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to make decisions? I mean,
We obviously haven't done anything about advertising the program director. We have the outreach
We
worker.
have our outreach worker.
so we have, I think, probably looks like,
Well,
I'm not going to say, but
to be specific, I think I'm in agreement with Brad. I'd fund the other increases, but not the position of the program director.
where do you, Stasha?
I would fund the program director as
So
well.
and you would, what would you do, Mr.?
Well, I didn't think about leaving the program line, but I think that's, at least for me, a good compromise. I'm still having a very difficult time getting my head around, and as you know, I've been very supportive of
No, you have,
seniors in the past.
And it's-
I'm just thinking about efficiency and proper use of time, and I'm really stuck on the added
So what do we do
position.
when we have 3 and 3?
I don't know.
Okay, we think about it some more.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
We
let
do.
us know.
You think about it some more.
We let
discuss
people think
Yeah,
about it for a
we're
while.
not going anywhere. You know where we are. You can find us. We're going home.
So,
Out of here, Shirley. We're leaving them. They got. Yeah. They don't want to be here till midnight every night.
Oh, well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody else, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we'll be able to, thank you all for coming. Agricultural Commission. We have Jan and Rich. Are you in between a row? Come up. Okay. Welcome back.
Should be quick, right?
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm not gonna give you back mine, but, okay, that one. Okay, so we asked, this is Rich Pelletier and Jan Johnson coming back to talk to us about the Agricultural Commission budget. We asked you to take a look at what you had level funded it, it's $1,746, which is what it's been for several years. That you have not spent that amount necessarily, so we asked if you would go through and take a look of what you wanted to do with that $1,746. And you've both taken a look at what you intend to do in 2014 and what you are requesting for 2015. You want to go from there?
Sure, basically in 2014, the money that we still have outstanding, we plan on doing 3 new signs. We talked about this last time, that these signs are right to farm signs that are coming into town are deteriorating quickly, so we want to replace them with a better signage that has a longer lifespan to them. This year we'll be able to afford 3 of them, 2 of which are going to go to activities that we actually have planned for next year. The primary focus for next year is the town undertook a big study on wayfinding signs. It's probably not going to go too far.
What is that?
Wayfinding signs. There was a grant that was given to the town to discuss designing a signage within town for like everybody. So it was not just,
Oh, iron, yes,
it was
yes.
just not farms. It was to the library, to town hall, to restaurants and the likes. And that doesn't seem, well, the study was good and it came up with some ideas and we built off of that. It doesn't look like there's going to be the funding available to ever implement it because it was into the hundreds of $1,000s. They were proposing some 400 signs around town. What we want to do next year is have the farmers mostly do most of the supplying, but the biggest focus would be on the $1,600, which is 2 13 to 15 foot posts at the intersections of 495, trying to clean up. We've always been criticized, not by you guys or former select people, about the debris that we make at the intersections of 495, where everybody has, a different type of sign out there. So what we were planning on doing is developing something like this, off of a post or something like this, off of a post, and these are the posts that range anywhere from $500 to $900, depending on what we're required to install, based on safety issues with the town, so that we would, these would be, then we replace all of our seasonal signs. The budget is only for the post, only for 2015. This sign is actually going to be developed under the 2014 budget. All of the farms would have to self-fund their individual signs, and they would also be responsible for going out there and when they're closed and taking those signs down, storing them in, and putting them back up.
For the seasonal, like the farms would
Right.
take them off, whereas
Right.
Bolton Orchards would stay on all year and
That's
then
right.
the show going.
Right.
Would you allow the restaurants to, like, the Roadhouse?
No.
So
Or
would-
Slater's?
Yeah, so how
No.
would those, so then where would those signs go?
Those aren't seasonal signs.
They're
No,
not,
I understand.
No, but
So
these are
we have
Roadhouse.
two posts down.
Well,
we're an agricultural commission.
Yeah, no, I get it, that's what, I kind of knew the answer, but then we pretty at one post, but we still have,
well,
I'm
with
not
that,
sure how many of
have you
those signs.
run this by the building inspector yet?
Have I run by the building inspector? No, we've been dealing with the public works department.
I'm
But this-
not sure that these technically, I like them,
11.
but I'm not sure that these fall within the bylaws as to what
I think
signs
there's an
should be.
exemption on agricultural signs.
If there is, then go for it.
Yeah.
But I just don't want you to see you put too much effort into it and then run into that door.
when the town had gone through some study, I remember we were at a selectmen's meeting where we talked specifically about these signs, because this was a big agenda item for one of the selectmen, and there was some funding that Don was looking for.
Well,
I
we had
can't
asked,
remember where we did it, and it was to address the whole signboard,
Well,
and have a
yeah,
place
yeah.
for everybody.
we had discussed,
Yep.
right after Don made a short presentation at the selectmen's meeting about the changes to the interchange, that other towns, well, the state provides signs that says McDonald's this way, Burger King this way, Sunoco, Mobile, whatever.
That's
Why
as you
can't-
get off, right as you get off of the.
Right,
Off
so,
the rail.
right, why can't they provide signs like that for us?
Well, we point them to the blinking light, but then to.
Yeah, and I think they said that there was, those are expensive
Someone's gonna tell them to go down
signs.
Wattaquatic.
No,
And
that's
the state-
fine.
The state wouldn't provide that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
believe it or not, and I don't remember the numbers, and I'm making up the numbers a little bit, to get on one of those signs is
Yes.
roughly about a $10,000 program.
wow,
A lot
I
of
didn't realize they
farms,
charged for that.
that got out on 495, like Neshoba Valley and Bolton Orchards, got on there about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, and that was done through a grant from the state that actually paid the fee
Okay.
for the ag people to be on it. If you were a non-ag, you still had to pay the fee. Those were those attraction
Right.
signs.
Mhm. But what might be interesting is, let's say something happens with 117 takeover by the state, whether there might be some money from the state for that. Who knows?
Well, our logic is that
I think it looks great.
If we get in there before.
For them, then you can put in what you want.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think this is,
I could sense the clinching when the restaurant name was brought up, but I know for a fact that the EDC. Did you? You weren't thrilled with the idea of a restaurant being on here.
Because
this is ag.
No, I'm not thrilled with anything other than agricultural, because if you get, you're gonna have to diminish the size of the signs if you start putting international golf course on there and.
I understand that, sir.
Bob's Garage.
It's fine. Where I was going with this was, I know for a fact that EDC is
Economic
looking at-
Development.
Economic Development Committee is looking at something similar, exactly where you're looking at this. And I just thought the idea, maybe you guys might entertain talking to one another as a joint venture, but it doesn't sound as though you're up for that.
No, it's like everything. The bigger you make it, the more complicated it becomes. When we undertook the study, it was actually the Ag Commission that actually got the grant, or was not got the grant, but we participated strongly in getting the grant to do a wayfinding sign study. And the thing just exploded exponentially, that it got to the point where there were going to be so many signs in town, but I thought it was going to be pathetic. We went from, a few ratty signs that we put up to, 500 pretty signs, but, let's go to Disney World.
Yeah, I mean, it would never happen. But I mean, the off ramps north and south, the 495 are a logical place. It's a gateway walking in, and so clearly the town of Bolton has a strong heritage around everything that you have on that sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that the EDC is looking at something similar, and it would include those. So
I understand that too, but again, let's just get back to what we have you back for. We met with you, we were comfortable with the budget in general. It's a smaller budget, not to diminish the work that you do, but there wasn't a lot of clarity as to what the plans were. You came back and you gave us some plans.
And I think that's
Whether
great.
we can pick and choose some of the plans, I think we can debate all night.
Yeah, and that's up to the commission to
Right.
decide where it
That's
goes
right.
with it. So, I don't know, I'm very pleased that you've done this, and I think that probably helped you in the process too.
Yeah.
Any comments about?
Yeah, I have just one quick, I love that there's flexibility to pull your own signs down. I think that's something that, I don't know if EDC is looking at what the, if that applies to any other kind of businesses, but because you guys are seasonal and, to have that, so that you're not misrepresenting on the sign when you're not open, I think that's a good thing to have looked at.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Won't make any changes. Great.
But you may be able to spend that 1,600 somewhere else if you can find some.
Actually, I'm kind of psyched about this whole concept.
You got a mission.
If you do something, then someone else is gonna do something, and it might meet what you're trying to do. I try to, even though you kind of want to be your own, I would just be sympathetic to the whole cause, and
Can I keep that, or do you want that back?
you don't want a new roadhouse sign that is bigger than the one that you want.
Well, we have the selectmen who take a look at the signs.
That's right.
Yeah, that's their charge, we're looking at the signs.
Mike is still there, I'll go over to
Okay, good, that's a good point. Thanks. Okay, Historical Commission, please come on down. Thank you for coming back.
Madam Chairman, I want to introduce you to Commissioner Engelmann, Linda Engelmann, and then we have Commissioner Alice Coggeshall.
Hi, Alice.
And Robert Bush.
Hi, Robert.
And Martha Remington, chairperson.
Thank you, Martha. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for all the information you've been sending us. The reason that we asked you to come back, when Linda had presented your budget to us when we originally took a look at it. And I think the reason that we asked you to come back is that we were a bit confused about what was appearing in your purchase of services line, and what the money was being used for, because we heard a couple of different things. So let's just start with if you're explaining what is in purchase of services for 2014, and what your plans are for 2015 for that purchase of services line item.
We have ongoing purchase of services. They are generally surveying structures in town, historic resources, consultants for the National Register district applications, and monument restoration in the cemeteries. In past years, we've had signage for the cemetery, signage for the historic district, bollard repair, and of course, it started out, our budget increased because we had the bollards project at Penn, which was rejected at town meeting and encouraged by the selectmen.
Can you tell me what year that was?
2005, I believe.
Okay.
And our budget has been stable, $6,250 since 2012, and the highest budget we had was in 2009 at $7,000.
69 something.
Even less than.
We had $7,000 in 2009, and then it was $6,970 for a few years.
Now it's been 6250 since 2012.
So, because our projects are ongoing, they're not do it once and we don't do it again. It's confusing budget-wise, because the cemetery people only work when the weather's good, they don't work in the winter, and the consultant works on other projects too. So one of your questions was, in the Pan District, the Pan Cemetery is already on the National Register of Historic Places. And we are in the process, since 2009, of putting the entire Pan neighborhood, as recommended by the Preservation Plan, on the National Register District, which is not a local district. There are no restrictions to homeowners. The meeting with the homeowners was very encouraging. We do the preliminary work of photographing and sending in a binder of what we think we want. They say, at the Massachusetts Historical, they say, go ahead and do this. And then the consultant gets involved.
So I understand that one piece of this, what the Historical Commission does, is to inventory all the historical structures in town, and that's been completed.
75 years and older. We're working on 50 years and older now, because each year, new homes, new resources come 50 or 75 years old. So it's ongoing. We have to identify those historic resources.
And there are a lot that are not structures, I mean, houses that we haven't done yet, stone walls, stoneworks, that kind of thing, that all need to be inventoried.
And that's a 75-year, stone walls, for example, that's a 75-year-old year.
Well, Mass Historical says 50. We set it at 75.
When you say they all need according to whom?
We work for Mass Historical Commission.
Well, what if
We're
we don't-
appointed by the
What if
selectmen.
we don't do them? We're not gonna get in trouble for not inventorying them, right?
Well, we'll be going against the master plan for the town of Bolton.
No, I'm just trying to
And
put it
the
into perspective. I
preservation.
just didn't know when you said need.
Right, right.
Other people have different definitions of
Of course.
need.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm comfortable with the cemetery work, I'm comfortable with the Ballard work, and I'm comfortable with what I think you were talking about, memorials, doing other work, and even some of the signs. It's not clear to me what benefit accrues to the town by getting more and more town stone walls or neighborhoods on the National Register. And I'm just
Excuse me.
sitting back on why we're spending, what benefit accrues to the town from spending that money.
Just because they are surveyed and identified, so that people know what they are and how old they are. It's a simple plan, the survey, to start, like 2 pages. That doesn't automatically put them on the National Register. When the preservation plan was done, they identified 6 neighborhoods in town that should eventually be National Register districts. We have the center one now, and that was 1998. This will be our second one at the Pan. It's an important industrial neighborhood.
Okay, and what benefit accrues to the town from doing that?
National recognition from the Department of Interior. All of the resources in that district are on the Register of Historic Places.
And what does that do if your stone wall becomes registered?
Nothing.
It
simply
does it
means that
prevent you
this-
from taking it down?
If you have a National Register district, it means that any project which requires state or federal funding
Yeah.
would be reviewed by Massachusetts Historical Commission. It does not stop the project. It has no teeth as far as protecting it. But it's letting you know, in Bolton, these are important historic resources.
Sure. I'll just share with you, I mean, you probably already know what my concern was. I was one of the members that wanted to have you back, is because I forgot to ask certain questions that would get me comfortable. One of them was, you're inventorying, you're extending the PAN survey to get places on the register. And then my concern was, if a house got on the register because you've expanded your brick, what restrictions on that particular house the homeowner would incur? Because I thought it was, I kind of likened it to, and this is just me being ignorant, not knowing about the process, from what I'm hearing tonight, is would the homeowner want, their neighborhood to be next on your list, and what that would do to their protections as a homeowner because as we learned from the historic district effort, that there were some homeowners that were not happy to be included in there because they were fearful of what they would do to their.
And that was a local historic
Sure.
district they were proposing,
Yeah.
which is very different. I saw, so you have what's the difference
Yeah.
brochure in front of you. This is not what we're doing. We're doing national registered districts, which really give you protection from state and federal funding and permitting, but there is no restriction on what the homeowner can and can't do with their house.
But to Bob's question, the benefit that you're describing to the town of Bolton and the taxpayers who are essentially funding this effort is to identify and register the stone walls and the buildings, et cetera. And that is a good practice because in our master plan, which was years ago,
2006.
we established that as a priority, and
Yes.
that it's just good practice to do that.
It raises awareness to the public in general about the assets the town has for its historical resources. And in a lot of towns, these assets disappear. Well, I call them assets, maybe you don't, but they do disappear. But if you have them all identified, then it's much more difficult for them to disappear. And, I mean, you don't have tourists going to towns that have lost all their historical integrity. You have tourists, you have, not that Bolton will draw tourists, but...
Yeah, I'm trying to think how much traffic they contribute.
Well, I know that when I drive down the center of town, and it reminds me of the places I go for tourists. You know, sometimes if I went to Vermont, I would see a town like...
You could save
Yeah, no, I know,
yourself
but
a
the
ton
other-
of money just camping out behind town hall.
At some point in time, do you think that
You
you'll be
want to
done?
see me there, huh?
Will we be done with this at some point, or?
Well, the
Well,
six
eventually.
districts, the six districts, six
Eventually.
neighborhoods.
Eventually, yes.
And then,
But
and then
not
will
in
it
the
be,
near future.
will we all be so old that it will be time to do it again, because?
No, it's done.
Okay.
That's the art houses that were
No,
built 20
because
years
it's
ago.
25 years later, and then now something becomes historical,
You may
right?
be disappointed to know that after we do all of this colonial research, Native American and Ice Age projects are also slated by
Recommended.
Mass Historic.
Archaeological stuff.
I don't think we have any igloos in town, as far as I know.
Comments from other committee members?
How does this district, what you're looking to do, how does that tie in with the present town bylaws? In terms of, you said it doesn't work hand in hand like the local historic was, but it, to your words, you know, it helps to preserve assets. So how does that tie in with the bylaws? That if you identify a certain asset, given the bylaws of the town, does that say then it stays right there? So are you bolstering the bylaws with these designations?
Well, which bylaw?
I mean,
Whatever
but
bylaw.
setbacks and things, it really has nothing to do with
Do we-
local town bylaws.
I think Brad's asking, is there any, maybe I'll paraphrase, I'm sorry to do this.
I'm concerned of how you're gonna paraphrase.
Is there any bylaws that prohibit alteration to a designated
No,
historical?
it says
No.
it's specifically stated there.
Did you get the brochures that Donna
I
made?
yeah, no, I had to go down.
That's why I didn't try to
Everybody got-
paraphrase it. I want to know it.
I want to shield Brad from Martha's wrath.
Martha, can you tell me what the six neighborhoods are? So we have the center of town, we have the Pan. What's number two?
We have East Bolton.
East Bolton, which
we
is
have-
East Road, East.
It's past Skinner,
Okay,
down to Stowe Line.
Bolton Spring
East End
Farm
Road,
area.
okay,
Sugar Road.
yeah,
It's to the Harvard line.
okay.
Anything.
That's a big area, yeah.
East of the Pan.
Okay.
And that's where I was going with the next question, Terry, so thank you for bringing that up.
We only have three. I'm just going on 4, 5, and 6. Wait just a
Then there's
second.
the Waterquatic Hill Vistas
You're
and
in
Historic Farms.
Give up my shed.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Quaker Landscape
Where is that?
in Fryville, that's down on West Berlin Road. There was a whole
This-
Berlin
community
Road,
of,
West Berlin, Berlin Fry.
Berlin and Fry. Okay.
yeah, and then last, the Nashaway Landscape, which is really the, down near Still River Road, which was
Sure.
Native American.
My word.
And again, these could have been questions that if we were more thoughtful, we could have asked you when you first came in.
Or if you
These-
had had a preservation plan.
Okay.
Yes, if we had the preservation plan, which I didn't know anything about.
Similar to earlier this evening, Mr. Cleary was in representing the school, and he presented us with all kinds of stuff to get done in the time frame and 5-year plan and all that stuff. I understand this appears to be a bit longer, but would it be possible for you folks to take those 5-6 areas, put a big map in place, maybe it's already been done,
She's bringing.
There we go.
There you go.
Bringing you the materials for you to.
and then give us a box of all these studies?
She's took them out of the fireproof file cabinets that
Yeah, you know, that was
Yeah, we had that
a
last
long
one.
walk. That
You know, at a minimum, this is very important stuff that, that I also think is good for us to all learn about and to know
No,
that this is
I'm
what
not
it
saying
was-
it's not,
No.
but so how much this pan area, all to your point, it's hard because of what you guys do. It's hard to get a sense of budgeting from year to year. So net, when this pan thing is done,
Oh, I love it.
We'll
all
probably
in,
calm down for a few years and not do another one for a while.
how much does the pan cost the town to survey to do? And then, what's the next one? What is that projected to cost? It's just so we all have an idea, collectively across these 6-7 areas, what are we looking at in terms of costs?
They cost about $10,000 a piece. The surveys are done, they are enhanced architecturally and historically. In other words, added to. The boundaries are set,
Survey.
and then there's
It's
a
22
historic
pages.
narrative
For
of
the
it.
district.
So it has taken, our consultant has been working on it 4 years. 1 year where she wasn't paid because she didn't catch up with, you know.
I'm sure it's a love affair.
So it's like
doesn't-
3,000 3 times, and then what's left over is about $1,000.
And with our
But that's
current,
coming out of our budget.
with
Yeah, you have
our, with our current consultant, because she has done work on so many areas in Bolton, she doesn't have to repeat research the way it would if we got different consultants to come in. So we use the same person and we managed to get a better price because she's done a lot of the research already.
Okay. Comment from anybody in the audience? Mary? So tell us who you are, besides
Mary Chumo, Corn Road. I'm with the Historical Society, not to be confused with the commission. First of all, what they do, the work is invaluable. And as far as getting the Pan area on the National Historic Register, in a couple of years, the state is going to be completely redoing the whole 495-117 interchange. By being declared a National Historic Register, it serves as a tool for any federal or state projects that are being done, which means that they will be more sensitive to the area that they're working in. So I think this is critical at this point for that area. It doesn't mean that they can't make changes that they want to make, but it will make them more aware and maybe more sensitive to the area. Also, there are some tax benefits that property owners can get if they are within these National Historic areas. I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that there is some benefit that can be obtained. So, I mean, just a few
For example,
extra perks that go with it.
The structures in Bolton Center that need restoration. I'm sure you know the 3 houses there at the intersection. If a person would qualify for up to 50% credits for an income-producing property, and those are all properties in the center, which would, you know, it would be nice to have a cafe or a architect or whatever in them, income-producing properties. They
Will
wouldn't
you-
have that status otherwise.
At some point in time, if you've already done this, I haven't seen it, I apologize. I think it would be helpful to the town if, at some point, maybe periodically, there is some literature that's mailed or available that would be a historic, you know, a guide to Bolton that shows the work and the places that you've already identified and where they are, and, you know, it could be a different project. No, I understand it's big, but
approach.
What I'm saying is we're trying to make it tangible to the taxpayer who's
Sure.
actually funding this.
Yeah,
And it's going in a book somewhere. And not lots of people who aren't passionate about it know where that book is or how to access it.
Sure,
And it might be something that could be available at town hall, or, you know,
Maybe public library.
we'd consider giving you money in the future to make, to mail to, you know, to some pockets of residents, so that over the course of a couple of years, everyone gets a copy of, like, the Conservation Trust sends out a nice trail map of Bolton. You know, I think you have to donate to them, but you know, your visibility into what's available in town is, you know, you could
buy
actually
it,
buy it,
yeah.
and then the people that are passionate would actually give you money to fund future work. I'm just saying something tangible to the town, other than the people that are really passionate about it, that are in the know. That nobody
Which is
sees.
so
Exactly
impressive,
right.
so impressive, the work that you've
I
done.
just want to say that this is the Landscape Heritage Report. We had excellent attendance at the senior center when this was done. They identified like 84 resources, and out of them, the top 10 were documented in this. There are copies of this at the library and at town hall. And no neighborhood would become a National Registered District without the approval of the people in the neighborhood. One of the preliminary things is you have to have a meeting. They're all invited, and we had
Which we did.
excellent
We sent out letters to
response from this.
everyone.
So if they didn't want it, we'd cool it on that and try to do another neighborhood if it, you know, fit in with our expenses.
So have you got approval from everybody in the Pan area to do it?
Well, we sent out the letter to everyone, and we had good attendance at the neighborhood
Oh,
meeting.
that's the one you were just
Yeah.
referring to, thank you.
So,
And nobody wrote to
they were
us to say they
enthusiastic
didn't
about
wanna
it,
be.
because they know they aren't going to have restrictions on things. It's going to be a good thing for their neighborhood.
You know, I know there's not a lot of money at stake in this discussion, but I'm still not sold on that there's a benefit accruing to the town by continuing this. And I don't know if other members of the committee feel that way.
I don't feel that.
Well, as soon as you said to me that it's linked to the master plan, my mind changed a little bit on the linkage. The town, I don't know if the town actually formally voted on the master plan.
Well, they
There's
voted
a
to
lot
have
of work done. Now granted, I've always argued, I've always had a bone to pick with the planning board following a master plan that is, at this point, 8 years old, and the town's different, and master plans take a lot of work, and you can't do them every year, but that's where I get, I see the linkage, Bob, more than I did coming into the meeting. I haven't read the master plan, but I take your word for it, that's addressed in there.
They also want us to identify with signage important things too.
Which you got approved for by the selectmen, the signs.
Well, that was for within the district, yeah.
Oh, okay. But also, I mean, you know, this is 1992, an annual meeting, this commission was approved, and and it specifically states, tied back to a state law, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8D, and what the work that they were going to be doing, and this was approved at town meeting, and, you know, I think they have an established presence in town, and I think there are a lot of people, again, that move to Bolton and like to stay in Bolton for the conservation land and for the historical nature of the town, as well as for its schools or fine restaurants or whatever you want to say. I mean, people come to town for a lot of, and I think this is a piece of it. It's a small amount of money. I don't agree with what you have to say. I would support this work. So, and we can go around the table and see where everybody else, if we want to leave the budget at $5,000, which I would say that we would want to do that. Mr. Brad?
My mind has been changed, given the master plan commentary and Ms. Remington's comment that the particular neighborhood, there's got to be consensus and agreement to move forward, so I'm okay with where it is.
Okay. Kai?
I'm okay with it. I was okay with the
3 weeks ago, right, a month ago.
Until we have different direction from the scope laid out in the master plan and the selectmen's charge that they've historical commission, then I think that have no other choice, not to say that I'm not enthusiastic about it, but that is how I've rationalized being in favor of moving it.
Stasha?
I get in trouble now because I grew up in this town, so I grew up in a historical home, and I love that I did, so there's my answer right there.
Okay. So I think we'll leave the budget where it is, and we really thank you for educating us and coming in and educating the folks that are here and the people that are watching at home. So thank you, and I think that was a great idea that Randy had about, it's always important to reach out and let people know.
Have a forum or something in one of our things.
Come to the senior center.
When things come up. Oh, it's a wonderful place. And if anybody wants to look at more of these, let us know and we'll.
Can you just direct us, can you find the master plan section and just forward it to me? Or just make me do whatever.
Section?
Or whatever, find the means in the master plan where you.
Well, it's in the back. It's these charts.
I haven't read it cover to cover.
It's the,
Okay.
it's the
I don't
They start out at
today in 2014 in the Word.
79 to the end.
Page what? 70?
Page 79 to the end. It says what conservation should do, what historical should do, what
Okay.
DPW should do.
Great. And the other thing is the preservation plan, where do I find that?
Sections 5 and 7.
Of the master plan.
Goals and objectives, and the 7th is urban. And they also have charts that show what each commission will do for that.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Preservation plan is really.
Yeah, I want to take a look at that. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Very close. These hills have a cemetery as well as the.
I'm sorry, David?
Randy had wondered about the approval of the master plan. I'm almost positive the approving authority is the planning board.
Okay.
And that there was no selectmen's vote and no town meeting vote, although the town meeting did vote the money for the master plan.
Do it, yeah. And they had input in creating it through forums, et cetera, at the
Right,
time.
but the final approval, I'm almost sure, came from the planning board. And
He did not have to go to town meeting.
did not have to go to town meeting, and it did not go to the selectmen.
Does the master plan have a shelf life that,
It stays in effect until there's a new one.
No, I'm just saying, well, when is the time to do it?
Thank you, Martha.
Periodically, the state will give the money if you have an updated master plan, contingent upon an update. That's what provoked the last one. They were losing out on state money.
So that's required in a certain period of time that.
No, periodically, the state will offer grants and such things like that based upon a master plan effective, 2013 or something like that.
Got it.
Now, I'm just picking that
I know,
here,
yeah.
but that's what provoked us to update the last time. And until we start losing out on state money again, we probably
Won't
won't.
do it. No.
It is getting pretty old, I think.
And it's a very costly, isn't it very costly process? I mean, to do one?
It's very labor intensive.
That's tremendously time consuming.
Yeah.
Before people on the master plan committee or
You don't want to be on that.
exhausted
No, I don't
by
wanna
the
be
end
on
of
it.
the process.
This is enough for me. Okay. Hi, guys, this is like weekly.
They could be out putting out fires, but no. They're
Maybe
here
they're
talking to us.
putting out fires here is what they're doing.
There aren't any fires, that's.
No, you left it, you left it, you opened up the door. You
That
opened
was a
up the door.
softball down the middle.
So, this has been a busy week. At our last meeting, so just to let the audience know where we're at, we're talking to the fire department, Fire Chief John Menser, Chip Durant, and what's your last name?
Durant.
Oh, good.
There's Wesley
And
Durant.
there's Jack Holbrook. Wesley, can I call you Chip?
Either way.
Do you like Wesley? That's a nice name.
Legal name.
Yeah, okay.
Mother and dad like Wesley, everybody else got some.
Chip. Can I just ask you one more question since I'm making her blushing anyway? Is your dad's name Wesley also?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Chip. Okay, so we have here discussion of the fire apparatus, purchase of the fire apparatus. And where we left off last week was in kind of doing a brainstorming and talking about being creative. The discussion went from talking about leasing police vehicles to leasing of the fire apparatus. And we asked you to go back and take a look at whether we could find out what a lease might look like for the fire apparatus, using the $545,000 or $550,000 cost that you are projecting. And out of all of that came also discussion about, is there a way of borrowing, using the ban, the state borrowing mechanism for this facility, this piece of equipment. So what we're basically doing is just thinking about how we could fund it and what might make sense. So we have buy it for cash, lease it, buy it using some borrowings, borrowing the money, maybe a mixture of a couple of different things. And you brought us a couple of different lease options, and we've also run some numbers on that. So,
And just to clarify, when you say borrowing without debt exclusion?
Without a debt exclusion, within what they call within 2.5, so it would be part of would fall within the budget.
I'm sorry, no, without a debt exclusion, borrowing outside of 2.5.
Right, we're not.
With a debt exclusion.
No, we're not doing that. That we don't want to do at all.
That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just.
Trying, okay, with the borrowing, yes, so the borrowing is not maybe the kind of borrowing that we've done a lot of in the past, where, you know, that we've our money, all of our money that we raise through taxes and other means is used for other, for the budget, and then we need to, if we wanted to make a purchase of something, we've had to borrow money outside of the budget, outside of 2.5. This would be within 2.5 is what we're looking at. So we've got like a couple of different presentations of the budget and the borrowing, which I think I sent to everybody here. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it.
Are there any extra copies of that?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I just didn't do that. Maybe we can,
Could I look on it?
well, no, we can get you,
I didn't bring my copies either, so.
and I'm trying to find the extra. Let me just summarize what we've got here, and maybe that'll be helpful. So we have a couple of different leases, and we asked to look at, well, actually, I think that all the two leasing companies that we have numbers from are 5, 7, and 10 years. So on $550,000, if we were to go use a 5-year lease, and I think I'll just go with the first one. I mean, they're pretty close.
They're pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, we have two different leases here, but they're within small.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Historically, when big ticket items are bought, how long do you bond them for normally? 10 years, 12 years?
A conservative estimate of their useful life.
So,
I'm guessing 10 years for a
Well-
fire truck.
well, I'm going to tell you the ban, if we were to do a ban, it would be a 7-year ban.
Yeah.
It would not be a 10-year, because they can't ban.
They can't ban for 10 years.
So it has to be
And
7.
you don't want to go, you can't go for a 20-year because the amount is too small.
And, you know, I think the life of your fire truck, if you were to give it, I just looked at other towns and others, I couldn't find it, it's 25 years?
That's rare.
Yeah, 25-year life. You're not going to be borrowing over 25 years. So if you're looking, so the comparable here, when we looked at the borrowings, we looked at 5 and 7, we kind of threw out the 10.
Now, I will add, the companies that I talked to would roll in, you know, I think I heard you say something about highway vehicles and police vehicles.
Yes.
Sort
Sort of, yes, I did,
Okay.
yes. And that's how the discussion went.
Okay, they would bundle those, and, you know, and if it went, they said, okay, right where you are right now with the 500 thereabouts, you got one rate. If it goes north of $1 million, which it might, depending on how many cruises, and.
No, it's not going north of $1 million.
No, it would not.
No.
No, okay.
So,
Okay.
you know, what was interesting, and
Okay, yeah,
we're
okay.
talking 2 cruisers maybe.
I'm sorry?
2 cruisers.
Okay, so what's a cruiser these days?
45.
Okay, so it's well south of $1 million. Okay. I didn't know whether you were gonna
It's
throw.
just going to make us all grayer than we already are, so.
Okay, I didn't know whether you were talking highway trucks.
No, we're not talking,
Okay.
no,
fine.
no.
Not this nice.
Not this one. So, let's just talk about let's just sort of talk about the fire apparatus and keep here. So we have 5, 7, and 10 years for the the 5-year would be, the lease payments for 5 years would be $118,200, I'm gonna round it, which would cost then totally $590,800.
What's the rate, interest rate?
2.43%. 7-year, the annual payments would be $87,125, would bring it to about $610,000 at 2.65%. So what's interesting on this one, and I don't know how interesting this is, but what's a little bit interesting is the first lease payment, because it takes time to build the truck, would not be until July 2015, so it would really be a 2016 item. I thought that was a little bit interesting. 10 years, 10 years would cost us, over the 10-year lease period, $651,000, or about $100,000 in carrying costs. A lot of money. 3.19%. The ban, on the other hand, now these are all estimates. We asked Donna to run, and she ran it with, who was it? What was the bank that was?
First Southwest.
Pardon me?
First Southwest.
First Southwest. And the ban rate right now is under 0.5%.
The one we have currently.
The one we have currently. So, but they very conservative. I asked her to take a look at both we use 500 instead of 550,000, $500,000 ban over 5 years and then over 7 years, and the costs. The interest rate on a ban varies from year to year because you go out every year for it, so that there's less of, you have a bit of risk built in because you don't know what the interest rate's going to be. But in this case, assuming the borrowing rate, June of 2014 would be 1% up to, and at the end of the 5 years, 2.5%. These are just estimates. And that carrying cost for the 5 years for a $500,000 borrowing would be $21,000, so substantially less. And if it were over 7 years for $500,000, would be about $33,000. And over the 7 years, it would go up to 3.25%. If we were to say, well, maybe we buy some with cash and some with borrowing.
Why would you borrow a dime when you've got all the cash you need to pay for this?
I agree.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I watched this part of the discussion on video because I wasn't here, but I don't understand why we're enthralled with this all of a sudden.
Well, those are my ideas. It's my outside the box thinking.
It was way outside the box.
I was thinking of it from the lens that we did not have the cash, that we had another use for the cash, such as tax relief or something else in which we then would still be able to address a need and defer. I'm a finance guy. I look at, when you think about taxes, you try to reduce your tax bill as aggressively as you can. When you sometimes look at capital purchases, you want to think about cash flow. And even though it costs you more in interest, $500,000 out the door today versus $600,000 out the door over 7 years is a proposition that you should at least take a look at. And so that's why I was thinking about this alternative, right? Because if we decide to do something else listen, I completely agree. It's at the end of the process and we're whittling down capital projects like there's nobody's business. If at the end of the day, we have consensus that we don't want to deploy the money somewhere else and we have $500,000 of free cash, I have no problem with cash outlay for the fire truck. If we do not, and we still want the fire truck, then this is a creative way to pay for it over time. And conversely, with the police stuff, which we're not talking about now, if that's only over 3 years and the interest rate is very low, we could do a ban for 0.5 point instead of the lease financing for 6.5, which is what Vin presented us. We could spend $30,000 on 2 cruisers in 1 year, which is $10,000 less than a $40,000 capital outlay in 1 year.
For one cruiser.
For one cruiser. and you only have the 30 grand for the next 3 years.
It would ultimately cost you the same.
It would ultimately
It's
cost you
going
the
to
same.
cost you the same.
But not from a cash flow perspective. In year 1, 2, or 3, Vin's shown a propensity to want a cruiser every year. And so that's how it came up. We were talking about Vin first, then I asked Chip in the back, hey, kind of flippantly, can we lease a fire truck? And he said, sure. Which I honestly didn't know that we could, because it's such a big item, but there are companies out there that are trying
There are a lot of them,
to
yeah.
address municipalities tightening cash flow with creative financing.
Well, they get the investment tax credit.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? That's how they make their money off it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, it's very tax.
Right, we don't get investment tax credits because we're a government organization.
But at the end of the process, I would never, as you know me for a long time, would never advocate keeping a dime of free cash more than we need.
My jaw hit the
If we
desk.
if we could spend it with cash. I was looking at it in the lens of doing something else creative with that money, whittling down our free
I
cash.
thought maybe
still
your
needed-
blood sugar had just gotten low or something.
Yeah, no, it was late. It was late, and I was talking radical about renting a vault too.
Okay.
But yes. Leasing a vault, yes. But that's my
Just like,
perspective.
okay.
Do we have some, how does the department feel about this? Do you care?
No.
As long as you get your, no, okay.
And I mean, I talked to 7 of these different lease people, they all said the same thing. You can put it out to bid, you can put the actual lease program out to bid by the town, and they're all gonna be competing for the best number to get you.
Now, the only thing that you said as a drawback, and you were just speaking off the top of your head, because I put you on the spot, was we'd have to follow strict.
There is no guidelines, it's a
But we'd
lease.
still do that anyway if we bought a fire truck to be prudent on maintaining it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
maintain
that's
it.
sort of out the door
Yeah,
as.
it's a lease
The
on,
only thing you'd have to do is
maintain
insure
it.
it.
We haven't really found any real downsides to it.
Yeah.
What can we buy the fire truck at the end of 7 years?
At the
$0.
They own
It's
it.
all factored in, there's no,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it's
leasing a
divided.
car where there's
Purchase.
$12,000
Lease to
payoff.
And in that case, I would rather go the van route because it's much cheaper.
Much cheaper.
At least known today, it's much cheaper. I don't think that I'd see bands rising.
Well,
that
actually,
much. I don't know.
the last time that the ban was high was back in 2007, 3.75%, so, you
The
know.
other benefit to a ban is that you can prepay it without a penalty. In
Right.
any given year, you can just pay it off without a
The
penalty.
other benefit I see too is, let's say we get to a year we don't have $100,000. You'd say, we'll just use simple, $100,000 for 5 years. We don't have that 100,000, you can do 50. And it'll cost you a little bit more,
Yeah,
but you don't have to.
borrow it again.
You
Yeah.
borrow it again, we don't have to pay the whole amount if we don't have enough. But it's
I think pretty much it looks like the lease is off the table and that's fine, but just for education, you can prepay the leases too.
Without a penalty?
Without
And pay it
that.
off without a penalty.
That's right, I'd seen that too.
But, we have another facility where we can essentially mirror a lease for
Yeah.
And
cheaper. It's the same.
I think the towns, I mean, the people that do leases, maybe the towns don't have as good a credit rating as we do, and so maybe their ban rates are
And
not.
I told you the story of Littleton.
Yes, you did, but you can share.
Yes, I think that's Spartan. Alex McCurdy represents Spartan Apparatus. He is also a selectman in the town of Littleton, so I called him first to get double input. And I said, okay, he said, oh yeah, we got somebody to do leases. And I said, do you guys in Littleton do leases? He said, we have in the past, but not currently. We have a AAA rating.
Right, so they're
Yeah,
issuing their own
yes.
stuff,
Yeah,
right, which
it's
is the way to do it. And our rating's not AAA,
But
but
it's
it's not
good.
not
It's
bad.
AA too.
Yeah.
So do we have other folks on the advisory committee that like to comment on this? Okay.
Yeah, if we're gonna do any type of financing, I would use demand.
And what about the cash? You heard what Bob had to say. If we've got the cash, use it?
But I also subscribe to Randy's theory, that even though we've gotten rid of a couple capital projects, there's still enough on there that's gonna.
Well, and we still haven't wrestled to ground this idea of potentially giving some money back.
Exactly.
And it's kind of hard to make the decision on what we do today if we haven't wrestled all those items to the ground. That's sort of what I'm saying.
When you say give money back, you mean like reduce debt service?
No,
Well, we're doing a little bit of that too, but no, actually
Raise
give,
less taxes.
Or raise less taxes?
well, actually give taxes back.
Well,
No, it's raised less.
Raised
Raised
Oh, yes, raised less.
If you don't spend the 500,000 on a truck, you raise 500,000 less of taxes.
because we've already funded it from taxes from years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And capital's coming back, right? Is capital coming back?
We will hear from Capital next week, with their prioritization. And we will have it for next week's meeting. David?
Yeah, another thing about the ban. To the taxpayer, it may be cheaper to have us pay the 1 or 2% interest. My guess is the median taxpayer has some kind of balance on his or her credit card. So his marginal cost of money is 15–20%. This is 1 or 2%. So if you give him the taxes back, and he can save that much on his credit card, not paying the 15 or 20%, and the town pays 1 or 2%. It's a sensible economic thing for him, rather than to use the cash to pay for this
So
thing outright.
the only thing I want to say about this is part of the discussion. We haven't, as a committee, had the discussion yet, and I'd like to reserve that for a later time to discuss what we're going to do, if there is anything left over, what we want to do. So I certainly know what your feelings are on that, but I don't think as a committee we've had a chance to have that discussion, so I'm just going to cut that short.
And again, I'm saying what I'm saying on this creative alternative, because we agreed at the beginning of this process in January that we would look at tax relief similar to a capital outlay of a fire truck or something else.
It's in our consideration.
That's why I'm thinking about all these things. To your point, we have a robust debate, discussion about this coming up.
Yep.
But this is nice to know. That we have this alternative.
Right.
And I think it's a slam, I don't think it's a slam dunk for the fire truck. I think it's a slam dunk for the police cruisers. And we should.
Did you get a chance to, may I ask you, because I asked you,
I
what
talked
did Vin have to
to
say?
Don, who talked to Vin, and Vin was, there's no difference to him.
Was he, how do you feel? I mean, I know this is a silly question.
How did he feel about the idea of giving him 2? He
Yeah.
was ecstatic.
Okay.
I mean, of course he would be, right? But,
Yeah.
he didn't say no.
No.
And, at the end of 3 years, I asked, the average mileage on a cruiser is 25,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 3 years, he'd have 2 cruisers at 75,000. When he showed us a list of 4 of his, we do have 7 in the fleet, but only 4 of them are patrol vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them were over 100.
Yeah.
And so, you give him 2, maybe you don't give, maybe you just ride that, then it's 30 in the budget next year because of your 2 this year and 30 in the budget the year after. I would assume we wouldn't add, we'd have 4 police cruisers with under 100,000 miles.
Well, we could look at it that way, yeah.
Today,
Why wouldn't he ask for another one next year?
Because
he's got 4 that are under, at that time, he'll have 4 that are under 75,000 miles. Because he's got a 13, a 14, and would give him 2 15s.
But he'll tell you a mile
I understand.
on a passenger car is not the same as a mile on a police car.
But he's running 2 right now that have over 100, and he's only asking for
2
1.
patrols,
2
yeah.
patrols. That was my, now maybe we only do 1, and it's 15,000 instead of 40.
Mm-hmm.
And we try it out.
You gotta walk me through that, because
And we do 1 next year, and then it's 30 next year, and you still
Numbers don't
haven't.
add up for me.
Just take, I mean, it's his looking at the.
Not tonight, but.
Not tonight, yeah.
No, not tonight.
Anyway, that was my.
So, good, thank you.
So
Thank you
again,
for being so
at the end of the
responsive to our
day, you
request.
wouldn't treat a bar, I mean, forget the lease, I think the lease is out the door. Barred vehicle doesn't, you own it, you just defer the payments like you would your own home car.
Probably all
There's
the others
nothing-
that you've owned so far have been on borrowings, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I know the lease,
They've been on-
compared to everything else, the lease is out the door, but it really isn't any different.
Yeah.
It isn't, but, and I did find a town, Oakham, which is a little podunk town
Yeah,
by the Quabbin,
that's leasing.
is doing a lease.
I had gotten really excited because in doing some research on this, I found that Bedford, I found like a newspaper article that they were leasing their 2 pumpers or something. Turns out that wasn't true, that they ended up, they bought a huge fleet of vehicles and to over $2 million, and I think they borrowed, even they did borrow for it.
What's more interesting is you can apply this anywhere. Chip had told us that the city of Worcester leases all their DPW vehicles, right?
But yeah,
this is a
they're all
model
over this
to learn,
municipal
right?
leasing, it's and it's
Something
yours
that
and it's.
We haven't thought about.
No, so it's.
But Bob's point on, if you got money in the bank, why are you taking on a mortgage? And that is a very, very valid point.
Mm-hmm.
I would not advocate to do that. Because as you know, we've been trying to spend down free cash on useful things and make a meaningful dent in our debt, and I'm still for that. I'm just saying, if we end up with this process with other decisions, we can get a fire truck for a lot cheaper and defer it over.
No, you know, if we need a fire truck and we don't have the money, then, yeah, we go borrow. I understand.
I think that,
How much of a difference would it make going out to bid? I mean, you bid on.
Doesn't matter.
They're bid on.
And the other thing too
Would
is,
it make 20,000,
so we
the
can
difference in the,
The 20,000 difference is the interest cost.
that's
It
what
isn't
I'm
the
saying,
cost
does
of
it
the
make a
truck.
difference?
It doesn't matter as far, the specs for the truck don't matter.
I don't mean that, I mean, it's the cost, right? So your people are bidding on whether or not you lease from them.
Oh,
We're not gonna
And
lease,
then-
no.
No, I'm just saying, so wouldn't that be a consideration as to how much less the truck would cost?
No, because
Would
first
make a
you gotta
difference
bid
in
for
that?
the truck,
Right.
and then you gotta bid for the financing
Right.
of the truck. It's the financing of the truck that you would,
And that's my point, so the cost of that truck wouldn't be low enough for that to be an entertaining idea.
the cost of financing the vehicle is a separate discussion from the cost of the vehicle.
What you're asking
So-
is, does the lease company get it for cheaper than we could get it on our own?
Right.
I don't think
Yeah.
that's the case. They buy it for the
No.
exact same amount of money
I think that there's,
we do.
yeah, there's just,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
and you give them the specs as to
That
what
was
you,
it. Thank
that you want it, you
We
want
put
in
the
the
truck
truck.
out to bid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get the price.
And then
Once you
go
have
to
the
the-
price, then you go
go
put
to
out the
leasing.
lease bid. We need
And
this
then you
much money for
finance.
lease.
Mhm.
That would be a whole separate process, but you know how much your truck's gonna cost.
What is your question, her question might be an interesting one, does a lease company who does this often, do they get special pricing? Do they get efficiencies from the manufacturers because they're buying 10, 15 trucks? whereas
Or
you're
are
only buying one?
manufacturers in the lease business as well?
Right.
Only one.
All right, so assuming, I think now to your question,
Right.
assuming you went down that manufacturer road, would they bid it
Competitive.
factoring in?
Competitively, right.
Assuming we get the lease, we'll save you a little on, so do they
That would
structure
depend
those
on,
deals?
that would depend on how we wrote the specs.
Hmm.
Do we
Yeah,
want one
I-
or do we want both?
and
the
about
specs.
it. And the other thing, I honestly believe, the closer we get towards town meeting time, I think magically some of these lease interest rates might go.
But you'll notice every one of those documents, that price is good for 14 days period.
Yeah, yeah.
Sign now or
But
forget
that's,
it.
but that's
And
just the nature of the
we'll all-
financial.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
Yeah.
They'd
they've
still
all
be
said-
It's
interested.
the same as the,
Well, they
Still
said
be
2 months
interested.
from now.
Once you have your number,
it's the
Yeah.
same as the
Always
rate
back.
lock on your mortgage. It's,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
I don't know.
No, you're good. Very good, thank you so much.
So
Like I
we're
said,
trying
being
here, we're
responsive.
trying to.
So we appreciate all the
The other thing that, you know, we think if we have the money, it might be more, you know, the people might feel more comfortable in getting the vehicle.
So, it's so
If that makes any sense, it's a big purchase. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay,
Very good.
thank you.
Thanks, sorry to make you wait so long.
No.
But I'm sure
I mean, you
enjoyed
love
it.
being here.
It's educational.
Yeah, it is educational.
Right, Brad?
Extremely,
We should add
depending upon the
20
group that's coming in, there's no doubt.
Just to be safe. No,
You're
seriously.
right, you're right, you're
No,
absolutely
no,
right.
just to be
Yeah,
arbitrary.
yeah,
and safe,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
'Cause
like
we
I
just-
do.
I just said we should add, from agendas going forward, we should just have.
To say
20
it's not-
minutes to
yeah.
what we're always doing. We're giving people 10 and we're taking a half an hour, I mean, that's our, and for once, if we actually start running earlier, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, we can fill that in with all the stuff we do at the end of the day.
And just for.
9:30,
Just for
okay.
courtesy for people.
Really, I'd rather.
Let me just just wanna-
11 o'clock nights is an
go through the advisory, this worksheet thing that Randy started 19 million years ago, and thank God for the.
I believe the previous chairman started that.
Did you? I don't think it was, I used his template, actually.
David started the concept and I made it much better.
I did a lot different than yours, so.
I already have one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what I wanted just to walk you through this, the unused tax levy is from Julie's spreadsheet that she sent out today with 176,563. Of that, we've added free cash, have a placeholder for snow and ice deficit of 150,000. We need to put that into an article for free cash, using free cash for the overspend.
Can I interrupt you 1 second? The best news for me on this is, again, we can say that with everything in the budget right now, including the massive school increase and some of the ebbs and flows, we can say today that we are balanced. Our operating budget is fully funded by our revenue stream without the utilization of free cash or other revenue sources. Right? And that's important. We often, this has not
don't say that, but yeah. And that is important. And just as you bring up the school committee budget, that's going to be voted on Tuesday, and they did have those 3 tiers. I don't have any idea tomorrow from Tri-Town meeting if we'll get any feeling on what they may or may not do, but we may have some benefit from that. We don't cross our fingers, but it's something that may happen, that 176 might.
Is your sugar running low?
Pardon me?
No.
Oh, my sugar. No, I always have enough sugar.
All right.
Okay, so then the 250,000 is free cash minimum. It leaves us with net available of $865,000 to round up. Then there's a list of different articles. Again, we have not received the prioritization. And what I called to talk to Julie about some of the borrowings where we have some balances left over that might be able to be utilized for on articles that would be on the 2015 warrant. So that's what you're seeing here. So you have the 30,800 for the vault, Meadow, Long Hill, Randall, Culverts, 125, and then under that, $10,167, which is the balance remaining on the sewer force main borrow, which could be used to offset some of the costs of the culvert replacement. And you'll see that again, we can remove some, but you'll see that again when we go down to the rescue equipment, which is reduced from the last time from $47,000 to $36,000 because of the $11,000 transfer that we did last week. And we could apply $3,904 from the public safety equipment, public safety borrowing, which is spelled wrong, but borrowing. And then you'll see that one more time under the cameras. We have $17,570, which is a round number, should probably be a different number, but can be reduced by $10,370 of library.
I have a question about that.
Expense and renovation borrowing for just those cameras, and then.
Well, I'm not sure the number's right.
Which number? The 10,370?
Right. My recollection of the discussion that we had in this meeting is that the outside camera was not eligible for use of the library funds that they have.
Who made that? I'm sorry, I thought they could use the.
We talked about it, and we asked Julie, and Julie said it was camera for camera, and she didn't think that the rules were that tight.
Okay.
Words in Julie's mouth, something to that effect.
In the conversation we had, we thought we could use it. So that, we'll tighten that up, but that looks like what we could do. And then, one thing that I had not included here was the $4,000 for the pedestrian mobility. Do you remember what that article is, Julie?
Oh, the other thing
I think it's Article
21. 21. Oh, I did. Oh, how good is that? Article 21. Thank you, Julie. She was helping me today. Big time. Which would require $4,000 of free cash to support it.
It's actually 22.
Okay, they maybe changed it. I'm sure Julie.
So it's 3, 4.
I would
On
pay.
my house it says 21.
Yeah, it was a good change. And the last is the OPEB. So then I just did, and so I went with we have to take a look at this now, but when I was going to, playing around with some numbers, said we wouldn't support any of the school items. That was earlier today. And now we're sitting with how much?
17.
17,000?
12 to 5, yeah.
Okay, so which, this is
So
it. So,
67 goes down by 50 grand.
okay, so what, if we were to remove the old fire station paint and repair for $28,000 from this list, saying that they're, and that will be a discussion, I think, that will be at the selectmen meeting, because I saw that Margie's coming to talk about whether to trade in versus not trade in the ambulance, and whether then the fire station would be, there would be a use for it. But let's say we remove that, that doesn't go. And then support OPEB, and I'm just gonna throw out a number here, OPEB annual contribution of $50,000. That would leave us with expenditures under non-school items of $855,930. Therefore, we would be able to, and I'm not considering returning, and the 545 is included for the as an outright purchase of the fire apparatus. That would leave us with about $9,000 or $8,500 in excess.
Does that include if the if the decision is made on the fire station, then the decision is made on keeping
Not keeping the ambulance.
Not keeping the ambulance, which would give us $25,000 more.
But you can't, at this point, you can't do that. That'll come back in free cash next year, right? Sort of, it'll be,
Well, the ambulance would, yeah, okay.
I think you have to do the
We wouldn't get the-
They wouldn't
250,000.
net it, they wouldn't
Yeah.
allow us to net it.
Yeah, so you have to borrow the
Yeah, we had that discussion,
Yeah.
sorry, okay.
So that would, so now throwing in the 17,000, we'd be a little short.
But
Do we make any?
without anything considered as $500, we should be.
Right, and I said that, 500,000 for the return, any kind of tax relief to the taxpayer is out, not considered, because the 545,000 for the fire apparatus, and is considered in its entirety, not as either a lease payment or a ban payment or not being purchased at all. So that's just the way that I did it. It could be 500,000 of tax relief. So we're pretty close. It depends, I think, I think one thing that's an unknown is we don't know what's going to happen at the schools, but we could end up with only $30,000. I mean, if they only take tier 1, we would only end up with maybe getting $30,000 reduction in our increase in assessment. If they, all the tiers, we would have about $100,000 back. So we just have to wait and see what happens next Tuesday on that one.
No, I mean, I just commented that's good math, and I've done that in the past, but what we've also done is, it's important to get capital planning, but we've asked, I don't want to presume that you're going to do this, but we've asked everybody to start thinking about these items and ranking them personally.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Over the next couple of weeks, when we finally do have the conversation on where we should put the money, right? And then what we do is we go down, or at least this is what we've done in the past, we've gone down the list and we said, do we have consensus on the engineering study for the vaults? And you go around, and if there's not consensus, then we don't, then we cross it, and then we try to fit it in there. I have done what you just did, which is, hey, this is how it would fit in, but you're making some assumptions on OPEB and stuff that other people may or may not support. And so, but it'd be good, I think, I'm gonna start thinking about ranking this list myself, right? And what I feel strongly about and what I don't, even now with the absence of capital planning, because let's be honest and candid, it's really late at this point.
Yeah, no, nobody's happy with that. So, and I think we actually, if you step back and just listen to the conversation, granted, they didn't have their full committee here and they hadn't done whatever work that they wanted to do on it, I think we have a pretty good idea of where they stand on this anyway. So yeah, I think that sounds good, to go ahead and take a look at it and think about what everybody wants to do on it.
Well, I'd like to pursue that a little bit more. Today's the 4th of March. The warrant gets closed on the 4th of April.
So we were going to talk about that.
And, okay.
So we wanted to think about what are, and I asked people to bring their calendars with them.
What do we have next week on the agenda?
We're going to have capital planning, and
We're done with departments at this point?
I think we're done with departments. I have it.
We don't have an agenda for next week.
Yeah, we do.
Well, not one that's been published.
Not yet. Jeez.
Well, okay, I didn't realize you were using the noble we.
Well,
The
I'm
the
trying
rest of
to,
us wee-wees don't have it.
well, I think it's been just a discussion of
Activity pieces of paper.
monthly schedule. I think, I thought she had sent it out, I'm sorry. If she hasn't. Okay. Generally, what's coming up on the 11th is just reviewing articles. So we're done.
Right at the point where we should start thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely, and looking.
Are we
So-
gonna vote on them next week?
I guess we should. I think we could have a discussion.
Yeah, I don't, are we prepared to,
Well,
well,
I think we should go through and vote on them, and if there's anything that needs discussion, we put that off till the 18th, but let's vote on the ones that we can agree on, that we can resolve next week.
I can do number one. Sorry. Okay.
What was your vote?
I said I could vote on number one, which is
Article 1.
Article 1.
And can I just mention too, the 500 for tax relief was a number that we just threw out there in the beginning. I still haven't
We have to be flexible.
acquiesced on the concept, although if it makes sense for people to think about it, I would recommend that people not think about it with a dollar amount, think about it as a concept and insert your own dollar amount here to get.
Yeah, I think this, I think that area is still, I mean, I know you're there. I don't know, I mean, I don't know that if we as a committee have discussed it really, and so.
But where it's on the sheet for people to consider,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that not to let the amount
Amount.
sway your understanding of the concept.
Okay.
And I could find myself in a very different situation and support X, Y, and Z and 100,000 of tax relief. I mean, it's not a fixed amount that should be considered, it should be the.
I appreciate that. That's a good comment. Okay. You're
I try to
welcome.
make good comments.
No, I know. So I think that one of the concerns is we have, it's next week. I think there are a lot, I'm just asking about this, Bob. So the zoning articles, are very difficult to vote on, because don't they have to have a lot of, they have to have some kind of public hearings and stuff?
So
Maybe-
are we not gonna vote on them?
No, we're gonna vote on it, but do we need to hear some from the public hearings? That's what let me see if I can get some dates of when the public hearings are gonna be. I'll talk to planning.
You can get the dates by calling me.
Typically,
What do you
we've heard
mean?
about the
It's
dates.
been scheduled. It's March 26th, the Wednesday? Yes.
What's March 26th?
That's the day of the public hearings by the planning board
On
on
all
all
of
their
it?
articles.
On all their articles, okay.
That's too late for us to vote.
You can vote on those articles.
Sure we can.
If we haven't heard the
The
hearing.
wording will probably change before the thing goes to press.
Or we'll end up looking.
Well, we have
for
another meeting,
change
we had
the wording
April
based
1st,
on
we
what
have
last year.
April 1st, we have a meeting. So, I mean, I think, let me just throw this out here. So, we've got a bunch of dog articles, are there 4 of them on dog kennels? We can probably vote on the dog kennels. So, maybe we can't vote on village overlay, because that's a very complicated one. But maybe we can vote on dog kennels. And what I'll do is I'll reach out to planning and see.
Well, I don't think we have much controversy on the non-financial.
Well, the
Well,
village
the
overlay,
Village overlay,
yeah.
I'd like to hear what's changed, because I really can't see what's changed.
I just don't think we're gonna have much controversy on that as a committee.
Well, what's happened to us before is we have seen, we've voted on them, the language has changed, and we've always changed our recommendation to
Right.
will be delivered on town meeting floor
Right.
to protect ourselves. And so, if we've learned anything from the past, we've learned that that will probably happen to us again.
Yep.
But things like the dog kennel stuff,
I think we can-
I don't,
And the barn, I think they put in, that one was the wording that Bob got changed and put in there, so we can probably do the barn. The one I was feeling uncomfortable with would be the village overlay, but let's go through it and, so this is the job, is to look through the articles and to feel, come up with your questions and thoughts and possibly what, how you might vote on it. So we've got the 4th, we've got the 11th, the 18th, you're gone on the,
yeah, I'm unavailable.
you're unavailable on the 25th?
That's right.
Unavailable on the 25th, sorry. And anybody else unavailable?
On Tuesdays we're talking about, just Tuesdays? No, I'm good.
Okay. Does anybody feel the need at this point, or do you want to wait till next week and see how the conversation goes to schedule another meeting? Because
May I say just one thing?
Sure.
What we've also done in years past is had, in lieu of the public hearing being late, we've had the planning board chairman and Jenny and/or now Erica come in and explain to us what the articles do.
Before?
Oh, yeah, no, in a regular scheduled meeting. So maybe you could do that for next week when we have nobody.
Yep.
Would that's worked, Bob, before. It's at least given us our chance, our own personal forum to ask questions and be pitched the idea of what they're supposed to do.
That's not too early for them, because,
I don't think so.
okay.
Well, because wasn't it because of that process last year that
We identified words that should change, too.
yeah, and then that went back and forth for a couple weeks.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
That was special town meeting.
Yes.
And we pointed out some things that didn't make sense to us,
Yeah.
and they looked at it and said, gee,
Because I
it
was
doesn't
around.
make sense to us either. And then the word changes
So-
started, so.
At this point, we won't schedule anything additional. We'll see how things are going. We'll have the recommendations. As soon as I get the recommendations from capital planning, I'll send them out to everybody. And
But when do we decide something like this police cruiser issue? When would you expect for us to talk about that?
I think we should get some figures run on that smaller van of borrowing, but, what that commitment would be on an annual basis for the two cruisers. What do you need?
You can just take that and
Yeah,
put in
just
the
divide it.
principal.
Yeah. We don't need numbers.
Don't
It's
care
so
about the interest?
small. No, for a 3-year ban, it's on 40,000, I mean, it's not material. It wouldn't
Just,
slam
you
on.
know what, just look at where it was last year and take, how much did we borrow and how much did we pay in interest, and take the $40,000 equivalent of that.
Yeah, because when we voted to buy a cruiser, we borrowed the money
See,
to buy, I mean, no, actually, we didn't. We had the money in our
Yeah,
operating budget.
yeah.
The bands all get lumped together. We only borrow one amount of money from the state.
But do we
don't
borrow-
We don't borrow for Weatherby versus the police cruiser versus anything else. It's just Donna goes and says, I need $880,000. Boom.
But we're borrowing this over 3 years.
Amortizing it is a better
Yeah.
way.
Amortizing it over.
She's gonna borrow
She's gonna borrow-
40,000 divided by 3
Oh, so we're
each
just,
year for the
okay.
next 3 years.
So we probably should
So
get a
she's-
better handle what that 40,000 really is instead of 40,000.
She's gonna borrow 40,000 right off the bat and pay off 13,000
Right.
over 3 years.
And it's actually not 40, it's
It's a bigger number.
43,000 because of the.
Well, 45 plus that other crap they got in there.
So we need to get a good figure from Jen, right?
But when Donna was in here last week, we
Still not
identified
sold on why that's a good idea.
we identified certain
Not either, Bob.
line items that she was gonna just lump together and pay off.
Yeah, that's been done. I mean,
That's been done.
I mean, I
So
don't,
that-
that's
what-
going to be done.
What is going on here, Julie? What you identified, the 10,167 is
Different, those were borrowed money
okay. All right.
So let me just,
for specific purposes.
just look at it as one cruiser. You borrow at a dirt cheap interest rate for 3 years, and you pay 15,000 a year for 3 years, and you still have the cruiser in 3 years like you would spend in 40. Think about it from a cash flow perspective. It costs nothing for you to spread it. We save in year one in that scenario $35,000, and we still get what we want.
Okay,
Just one.
but when you get into year 4, you're back up to $40,000 a year.
No, you could do
So
it
we
then.
release
You
again.
could do it then too.
No, that's my point.
No, you could do one, you could give him one a year for the next, each of the next 3 years, you could give him one a year, just like he's probably
That's what I
going to
said, and
want.
in the 4th year, we're back up to $40,000 a year.
No, or we just reset the clock and we do another 15. If you do 15 a year, the only year that it gets bad is the 3rd year, you're at 45,000. And then it goes back, and then the one comes off and another one comes on. So you're at, in year 4, you're at 45,000 for the rest of your life.
Back to where you started.
Right, back to where you started, exactly. But it gives you 3, it gives you.
3 years of
yeah,
having other
of lower
monies to
taxes.
spend.
Lower, right, of
Well, then you're-
35 grand.
but then you're
put
paying
somewhere
higher
else.
taxes.
I understand your concept, but I can triangle that out for you, but think about it as 15 today, 30 tomorrow, 30 next year, 45 the next year, and then 45 forever, if we decide to give him another one. At some point, he said, if I get a new cruiser every year, I'm gonna have to. At some point in time, it's gonna be so good for me that I'm gonna not want one. And then it goes down to 30 that year.
I don't think that will ever happen.
Okay, so then it's gonna be 40 a year for the next, then look at it for the next 3 years, it's 40 a year. Isn't 15, 30, 45 better than 40 a year for the next 3 years? I think it is, especially because it's cheap. We used to borrow for copiers outside of 2.5 because debt was cheap. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to think about utilizing that cheap debt within 2.5 to balance out our cash flow.
I don't want to,
and
I don't want to incur debt. Debt adds cost. That's, I understand from a cash flow perspective.
But we don't have a cash flow problem.
We don't.
We don't.
But if in year one, you have 35,000 and you get what you want and you have 35,000 to deploy somewhere else. That could be a $35,000 tax relief.
But if I buy, the other way to look at that.
Start somewhere.
The other way to look at that is I spend 40,000 for a cruiser and then I have no encumbrances on me next year.
Right. I'm not arguing with that.
Okay.
I just thought it was a great way to fix Vin's problem, get the issue behind us for cheaper than it was to buy one cruiser this year. You could rent 2 for 30 and then be done with it. And you have 30 this year, 30 next year, 30 the year after.
It doesn't mean that we've got to stick to this renting the whole time. It could be some type of blended conversion. I mean, the only time I see this as becoming a major problem, you know, if we start going down this lease road, I'm concerned that, you know, whatever number of years when we're off of this and the mandate doesn't follow through and the new people on here are spending like drunken sailors and we've built this system in place, right, then we are absolutely screwed.
Right, and you know, if you're going to do that, I don't know why you would do it for 3 years. I would do it for 7 years.
You can't.
Why?
Because you can't, the useful life of a cruiser is 3 years. That's what Donna said, that she could be the maximum.
All right, I understand that. I thought you could go out at least 5
fire
years.
truck, because the useful life of a truck, fire truck's 30 years.
So are they being rented or are we leasing them to buy them?
We're not leasing
We
them,
would
we're
buy
buying
them,
them, we're paying for them.
We have a car payment of $15,000 a year for 3 years, just like you and I would have a car payment.
For what?
In borrowing through the van.
Say again?
So I've never had a car payment ever.
Well,
if you could borrow at 1%, you'd be foolish not to have a car payment.
No, not if I saved money for the last 5 years and I can pay cash.
Right.
Well, there is such thing as...
Because you could have gotten more than 1% on that money.
We're forgetting about the age-old time value of money.
We also don't know what's going to happen to these interest rates. So
Listen, these are things that we are supposed to, we are charged with thinking about.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't think about it just because I say something that's different from what you believe in.
I'm not saying I'm necessarily committed to the idea. I'm just saying that it's something we should think about. And wouldn't it be nice to address Vin's problem and maybe not hear about it next year or the year after because he's got 4 patrol vehicles with under 100,000 miles.
But
you guys are skeptical. I agree. I've been burned on being optimistic before too.
On the line item of return excess free cash to taxpayers, and there's an example, and it goes through the math, and so is it an exact dollar offset for every dollar we put towards that? Say we go out and get $100,000 ban. What is that going to do to taxes versus 100? Is it an exact push?
The first year, there's no effect because Donna won't borrow the money. We don't have to pay the interest until the year after she borrows it.
All right. So if hypothetically I were to propose we turn and give $250 back to the taxpayers. But through the course of what I'm looking at this list, I come up with a scenario of let's go do 250 on some concept of a ban.
Yeah.
Is it complete?
Wash in year one.
It's a wash in year one.
I think so.
Yeah, it's a wash in year one.
And it,
And it hurts you in year two.
By 1%.
By one, right, by the cost of the bid.
Whatever the cost.
Theoretically, you could arbitrage it, since you don't have to pay the interest, you could.
but that's what I was
You
thinking.
could give
but
$1
we can't-
million back to the taxpayers, borrow $1 million, and in year one, the taxpayers are the arbitrage.
We don't, that's what I was thinking, we don't have the
They have
ability to
a
go
credit card
to.
balance, and they have a great big favorable arbitrage.
There's an arbitrage to the homeowner, there's not an arbitrage to the town.
Right.
Yeah,
But I see where you're going.
yeah,
But then year two, you pay the piper, that's.
yeah. But if the town had the ability to go by like S&P futures options.
We're getting into.
Oh, then, if that were the case, if the town had the option to do that, we'd be so far underwater right now.
I know. Oh,
But I like that, see, I like the thinking though. It's just, listen, I mean, if we want to be cash flow, if we want to be cash people, then we can be cash people. I'm just saying, what got us into some of the issues that we're in now with this high tax rate is we used to borrow for lots of things outside of 2.5 and then spend inside of 2.5 to our levy limit. If we can think reasonably about creative financing and still get the things that we need, then it's something that we should do. I'm not saying we free up this 35 grand for VIN or 10 grand or whatever and spend it on something else. It makes Terry's spreadsheet $10,000 better, and we still get what we need. And the cost of deferring it is not great under the current interest scenario. And I'm not advocating, and it does add to the debt, but it doesn't add to the tax rate.
yeah, I mean,
It actually might take away from the tax rate, because you get that 35,000 in this scenario of going from 40 to 15. You get that 35 grand, or 25, I'm sorry, my math's bad, and you could return it, and the taxpayer would get 25 grand in their pocket. They'd still get a new police cruiser. And we wouldn't screw them next year because the interest rate's so low. In that case, there is an arbitrage opportunity, because you're getting what you need, and you take what you were going to spend to buy it, and you give it back to them.
Okay.
But then next year's unknown. Then Bob will say, next year Vin wants another one, so then it's.
Yeah, it's all,
$15,
you know, it's all
$10,000 and
difficult.
it compounds.
And you know, and you have risk associated with it, and we're really, you know, we're a municipality, we need to think
Well,
about
what's
risk.
the risk? That
Change in interest rates
It's
and-
gonna go up to, from 0.5%.
But we don't have to
to
incur any of it. So we don't have to incur any of it.
Terry, you
That's all.
have to, okay, I understand. You are an accountant by nature, and you are fiscally conservative. I get it. I'm a fiscally conservative guy. I'm not an accountant by nature. I'm a finance guy that thinks about creative financing.
And I think you do that with some, you know, you can do that in business easier than you can do it as in a municipality, that's all. And we have so many, you know, we have so many unknowns. And if we don't make our budget, there's a serious effect on people's.
Terry, we had unknowns 3 years ago.
Better about doing that, frankly. If you told me you were gonna stay on advisory for another 3 or 4 years.
No, I understand.
To oversee
That's
what
the
happens the
point,
year
is that
after
we
and the year
unwind-
after that.
Someone's gonna have to unwind all this shit and push stuff, and we might
It's
not
2
all
weeks
be.
in a row.
It's 2 weeks in a row. The FCC is gonna send a letter to
Blood sugar's getting low again.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I get it. I totally get it. We worried about that on some other stuff that we did years ago too. It is a valid concern, but we will have continuity in this committee. We won't have turnover. We won't have 6 people turnover, I bet, in 3 years.
Okay. Maybe we will. David, something quick, because I'd really like to get out of here.
I just want to point out that the way the committee has burned the town for the last 10 years I've been involved is by raising too much taxes every year. Every single year, we've gone above our free cash target.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Well, and I was actually gonna make the same comment that you talk about unforeseen. The past 4 or 5 years, you've been on some of them too. We've put a target of this, and it goes to this. I'm
gonna walk through free cash, because,
Okay.
I mean, and I'll try and find the time, that way my mother will be fine, thank you, and I can get to it, but I think we have to, be cognizant that free cash is just not all one thing, not just all budgeting. So let's just talk about a couple of things really quickly. So next week, we're gonna review articles, everybody knows to go through, I thought that was a great idea, prioritize capital. I'll try and get some information that we can get planning and you'll find out. Anybody coming to Tri-Town tomorrow? We'll be there. Okay, see you, David. There was a question brought up at the end of, I think, last meeting about if there could be any savings in the police telephone costs. I actually went back and took a look at that. The run rate, which was a term I never used before this year, sitting here, the run rate for 2014 is right on, because it's a finance term, is right on their budgeted amount, which is about I'm gonna say 24,000, I can't remember, I have it here somewhere. Take my word for it. So I don't feel, I mean, everybody can check this out, but I don't feel that it's appropriate to make an adjustment to the police telephone cost for this year. Yes, it was less last year, but this year it's running at budgeted amounts. And I talked to Don about whether there had been any savings from that analysis, and there was nothing really to do over there at the police. You brought up last week that we should, as a committee, support the 2% COLAs that are.
Well, we should
I don't think there
discuss
was,
it
we could
and vote.
discuss, there wasn't a vote in the prior year, so it doesn't need to be a vote, but there was a discussion there wasn't a formal vote, I went back and looked.
Okay.
But there was a discussion and so we can pull this off to next week, but a discussion and a statement that we supported 2% COLA for the non-union employees to make it.
The difference between this year and prior years is past few years, we've had contracts, at least with one of the departments that sort of set the tone for the rest. This is the first time we've gone through a budget cycle with no contracts for anybody.
We won't have them.
So we just relied on Don Lowe to tell us what the estimates should be.
Yes.
We haven't done that before. We've had written.
Even when they've been, I didn't think they were signed, we had at least one of them.
We had at least one of them in force, yeah.
And this year we don't, and we've included the 2% on the basis that that's a reasonable number, and do we want to make a statement?
Well, I'll say that, I'll make I believe and would believe in years past is the reason that we try to closely follow the labor contracts that are in force is to achieve parity between non-union and union employees. And I think to the extent that we can do that, I think that's always a good thing, because one of the main reasons that labor force is unionized is to be treated fairly. And if we were to give our non-union folks 0% and the union contracts for union folks call for 2%, then we're asking for town hall employees to become unionized and negotiate their own contracts. And that's not what we want to do. And so we've always had this parity theme, and I see no reason why it shouldn't continue, but we've always had a discussion about it, so.
Do we want to have more of a discussion than what we're having right now?
Well, if everyone believes what I just said, then I guess we don't.
How does everybody feel? I'd like to be able to put this to bed.
Feel the same way.
Okay, and that number is 2% right now, if you feel that way too?
It's in bed.
Bob?
Fine with that?
Okay, so we will make that, that we are supporting a parity between union and non-union employees in the cost of living adjustment. Right, so that's it. I mean, again, minutes have not been, we won't talk about minutes, we're gonna get out of here if everybody's willing now. But we hopefully will have some time next week to go over the minutes. Minutes have been distributed to you up to date, and I probably...
I have no idea what minutes we've signed and which ones we haven't. Just
I'll send you out. I'll send everybody. I'll send you out an email of what you need to review for next.
Tell us where we need to start again.
Okay.
I read.
Pardon me?
I read them.
You've read them, and I think you'd be very important. No, she's got little check marks off of her name.
Hey.
Okay.
Just on it.
I have not read them.
I read them too, Randy.
Bob is using my proxy.
Okay, so that is there any other business? I want you to think about the other post-employment benefit number 2 while you're doing this, okay?
Can I just ask a question on that?
Mhm.
The 138,000 you have in there now as a placeholder?
Is really 183 minus 45.
Right, but that, what does that get? Does that get us fully funded today?
No, that doesn't get you fully funded.
Where's
It's
the
annual.
138 come from?
It's the suggested annual required contribution that came out of the.
So how many of those 138s will we have to do to be fully funded?
Fully funded?
You have
To be fully-
22 years worth.
No,
No,
more than
I'm
that.
just kidding.
30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
30 years. We haven't studied yet. We haven't studied. We haven't started yet, so it'd be 30 years. And
Because it's like $2 million or something. Okay.
yeah. So
So why does 50, I mean,
why 50 to
50
get something?
makes a commitment, and then we locked into that commitment every year, and
No, because it really, if you're committed, I mean,
Better
the
number.
183 is, you can pick any number up
He's
to
just
183,000.
asking a question.
No,
You can
but
go
no, it
higher
doesn't
than
make you a
183
commitment.
if you'd like.
You can do 183, you can do, I would think not to.
You can do any
borrow for
number
that.
up to 2 million.
I would suggest that you not do 0 though, but that's my opinion, obviously. Ms. Doak?
Can I ask a question on OPEB?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, God, I know everyone's get out of here, but if we're gonna be thinking about it, one quick question. Does it put us, are we sending a message one way or another philosophically by putting or not putting money into it? I mean, I get the whole concept of it, and I understand that it's unfunded liability, but, you know, is it saying we're not supporting something, or we are philosophically financial guys?
Well, if you're asking philosophical questions to financial people, that probably.
I know.
That doesn't work, but I think.
Where does it fall in the
No
ethical
more.
range of?
I mean, it's a fair question, but I think no more than, you know, did we send a message to senior citizens earlier tonight? Are we gonna send a message to the fire department on the fire truck? It's the same thing for all departments.
So we're not, our municipal employees, specifically to OPEB.
we don't send a message, we don't care about them if we make it so.
Okay.
Well.
We don't. We say that we are standing by our obligation to you, and you're retired, we're gonna pay for your medical benefits, we just don't
Just
wanna
not
pay
from
for it
this
right
kind
now.
of fund, not from this
some
restricted.
Okay,
point in
that's
time,
what you're, okay, that's, I don't agree.
At some point in time, we'll have to
I
pay them.
discovered that the town of Sterling hired an independent auditor to look at the assumptions behind their OPEB assessment and the payment schedule.
That could cost money.
They cost, I think it was less than $6,000.
But please, for
That's why you're
Stasha,
an outreach worker
will you
meeting.
not agree, Terry, that putting 0 in there does not tell the
I think it
retirees that
does
we're not gonna support them when they retire and become eligible for medical benefits? It does not
That doesn't
say
say that, but it does, but I think it does make the statement that we don't take this obligation
That's-
seriously. That's what I think.
That is
No, that's what I
not
think.
true.
That's what I believe it
Head as
is.
we go, and we're
Yeah, I do
funded to
too.
do that.
Rating
I would never think
agencies
that.
The rating agencies,
will believe that you don't care and you're not taking it seriously.
What's the interest rate to that? Whatever the money, whatever.
well, it's gonna go up. I mean, if we don't make any payments in, the liability's gonna grow.
Oh, I understand that. So all this is just helping to keep that down. What's the internal rate of return on that account?
But it's estimated like 5%.
5%. 5%.
So we fund it with 50 grand, that 50 grand is gonna get 5%.
Well, hopefully,
No, don't we pay out of that as soon as we put money in?
you don't have to.
No,
Well,
because you still
when
you still
someone-
have it in the budget.
When the 138 was calculated, it was calculated on a present value of what it would grow to. What's the assumed growth rate? If we put 138 now, what's the assumed growth rate for 22 years when it becomes due?
I'd have to look at the.
I mean, that's the type of thing we need to think about, right?
I'll bring
There's
it back.
actuarial assumptions. They're always aggressive. You know, if we
And
put
they're
in
redone
50 now, it's gonna grow, you know, we're gonna get whatever the market gets, or... Listen, I'm gonna take significant exception with, a decision on 0 for me does not mean that I'm gonna skirt my obligation, or the town of Bolton's gonna skirt their obligation to the people that have worked here and will retire.
No, it's what do other people look at
It
it
means that
as?
we don't care about funding today, when we're not required by law, and we don't have to, and we have other good use for the money. That's what it says.
I found, we could fit it in, but
Well,
everybody should go
Thank
home
you.
and take a look and think about this, because we have a difference of opinion, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
I just don't, it's improper for you to say
I'm
what you
not-
said.
No, I gave my opinion.
Fine.
I gave my opinion of what it said.
Yeah.
You gave your opinion that it didn't say that. I'm saying that from the outside, that this is how it appears to me.
Okay.
And I can have an
So
opinion
then,
just
Terry,
as like
for
you
the
have an
past
opinion.
10 years, we've said to the employees, good luck when you retire, because we're not gonna pay for
There was
it.
no requirement for it.
There's no requirement now.
There is an obligation on our, there is an obligation on our financial statements.
There's
There's
no
an obligation
requirement
exists.
to fund it now. There's no law
There's
that
no
we
law.
fund it now.
There
And
isn't.
there was no
There
law
isn't.
last year either. And there was no law the year before, and there won't be a law next year.
So why does a law make it a reason to fund it?
But Terry's arguing that it's it's a requirement. It's not a requirement. It wasn't,
I
it
didn't-
isn't, and it won't be.
I didn't say it was-
Until it becomes a requirement, then I'll start really thinking about it.
So it only hurts, one thing that does hurt us though is in potentially our ratings. That other people are gonna be looking at this unfunded liability that we have, and our AA, AAA, whatever we got,
No way to.
might decrease based on that becoming a bigger
When it
number
continues
of
to
liability.
grow, or unfunded continues to grow, yes, I would say not today, not next year, not the year.
Okay,
But at the same,
that's the timeline.
I think it's,
Okay.
over time, that may happen, but it's not gonna be a 2 or 3 year
Yeah,
thing.
but I also think we can look at it from the standpoint of, if I want to be able to retire, seeing how I don't get a pension, and Social Security's not going to cover my lifestyle, I damn well better be putting money inside my K plan. It's not a law that I have to, but I do. And so I think we can at least entertain some number going into that. And I agree that we could absolutely, I would love, that's why I want to know the IIR inside that thing. I want to know, if I am going to put money in that, what's it going to do for me? Because I know what I can put money into my K plan and what I can assume for rate of return relative to, do I keep that money in my possession so I can go buy something now? So knowing the mechanics inside that, I think will be very helpful to our discussion. But I think I don't feel if I put a zero in there that I'm looking at not taking care of the employees, because we're taking care of them right now. They're retiring and they're getting health care, and we're paying for that right now. But I do think we can also look at it from that standpoint.
I think
Moving
you'd be
forward.
taking care of the taxpayers if you stop putting money in now, because in the future, when all of a sudden it does become a law and you have to do it, you're gonna have to do a bigger chunk. So why wait till then, till you're required to, and then hurt the people later on?
So Julie, for next week, will you be able to get us some additional data on the mechanics?
Send you the report.
I have the report.
One thing I've learned about actuarial studies with regards to these kind of things is
Oh, yeah.
that the answer tomorrow is gonna be completely different than the answer today.
And you're probably right.
And that's
It could be
that's
higher.
the thing, that 50 grand that we put in this year could get completely washed next year with a new study that has a different rate of return, a different assumption, one different person that's on or off. This is a rapidly moving target.
But there's always gonna be a liability
There
there.
is no question, right? And if we were flush with cash, and it would be very responsible and commendable for us to fund something like this.
So what I look at is, let's say we borrow, we use the van to borrow.
To borrow to.
No, for the fire apparatus.
Oh.
And then we have much more cash. Some of it will go back, some of it goes back to the town, possibly. Some of it can go into this.
If we lease a police vehicle and save 35 grand that we ultimately, or 25 that we ultimately would spend, it's a perfectly good alternative to stick it in here. If that sells the borrowing for a police vehicle, then something I'd
May very
certainly
well.
consider.
May
But it
very well.
frees up, what I'm saying is it frees up money to do something else with and still have the same $40,000 outlay. Then you get, Terry's happy because she gets 25 grand in OPEB. And Finn's happy because he gets a police cruiser, and we're just down 40 grand than we were before.
And the average person on the street has the position that I first joined advisory with, which is that government will spend as much money as you give it.
We are, well, if that's what the average person thinks, I think that we've been spending since January 4th or whatever day we started, and wasting our time then, because we look at we don't spend every dollar that we've
We're
been
sitting
given.
here right now trying to figure out how to come up with another $25,000 to spend in fiscal 15.
No, we're not, because without, the way it's sitting right now, we even have that $50,000 to put in.
Well, remember,
It's just, there's
my
lots of
initial
different ways
argument
to.
was take the 25 and give it back to the taxpayers. I morphed it just to satisfy Terry's quench, to thirst to fund something.
Well, you gotta rise out of me in the process.
Well, that's a double
Benefit, double benefit. Okay, on that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Rob.
If anything else, nobody can say that we're not entertained.